All right,
We are
Hardianas.
here with Gregory.
What is it? Gege Hire.
Yes.
Gege Hire.
Yeah, that's right. We're here with Greg Hire. And I just got back from Karratha. I'm feeling very grateful. No, I got back from the mine site in Kalgoorlie. I'm feeling very grateful that we had a chat today. Do you want to give a quick shout out because we're grateful for our Patreons as well? Yeah.
Do we have to?
No, just saying thank you,
Oh,
Patreons.
yes, thank you, Patreons. Yeah, we are very thankful because it's great. Without Patreons, we can't do what we're doing. And
and it's helping us move to our new studio, which we'll tell you about with the next ep.
We'll talk about it.
We are very grateful for our sponsors, Raunchy. So shout out Ian, and congratulations, Ian Jeffrey Motors, for being the best Bosch service centre in the whole of Australia.
Yes,
Raunchy. He won his...
Oh, yes. What is it? Bosch. His Bosch one, yeah.
Yeah, he services cars. So if you need the best Bosch car servicing and mechanics, it's Ian Jeffrey Motors.
Classic.
And he's shouting me a ticket to the Star Awards on Monday, which I'm very grateful for. It's the Adult Entertainers Awards night on a Monday night. So thank you to our sponsor, Raunchy. And
it's a beer that actually
Jeffrey.
tastes good. Today we're joined by Greg Hire. Oh, Hiri. What do we talk about today?
Life.
A lot.
Purpose, I think. Gratitude, definitely one. Wolfie.
Wolfie.
Wolfie gets a good mention at the end.
That's a bit. And and I think
3-on-3 basketball for the Com Games.
Yep. Your small penis.
Yeah.
Everything else.
And
stitching time.
Stitching time and things that we're passionate about.
And a toolkit and skills if you're not feeling too great. How to actually go about it.
It's just an awesome chat, generally cathartic on mental health. So thanks so much for coming.
Absolute legends. My pleasure.
Let's get hard. Oh.
Welcome to Hard Yarns Podcast.
I am fucking fat.
Anything Chris White says, please disregard it.
5D is actually a state of being. It's a unity consciousness.
That was Hard Yarns with me, Frankie Rose. So I'm going to throw it over to your co-host,
Daniel Delby.
And Cameron Brand.
I would do this and then I'd gong.
Free in attendance for the millions listening at home. Let's get hard.
Cool. Sick. All right, let's just double check. Yeah, you look glorious. Look at him. Look at him.
Grey hairs.
Yeah.
Teeth.
How good.
All right, so you got the Chicago Bulls jumper. He's a fucking Bulls nuffy as well.
Are you a Bulls man?
I stuck with him.
Yeah, so am I.
Stuck with them. Like, I'm one of those people. Once you're supporting someone, never. I feel like we
much like a Lebanese marriage.
Speaking of Lebanese, we have a mutual friend before we begin.
Yeah, a mutual family, or just an acquaintance.
An acquaintance.
Yeah. So we were going to say before the pod, we're Wanneroo boys. Are you a Woodvale boy?
I am a Woodvale boy. I grew up in the KGB.
The KGB. Kundooling.
So,
how'd you end up at Woodvale basketball scholarship?
Yeah. We didn't have much money going on, so basketball scholarship helped me out. Unique. My parents are illegal immigrants. So hence
no shit.
Literally. So I don't know if I should be showing that on the podcast.
They're allegedly illegal.
Yeah.
So
that's why you can't be prime minister. Is what I.
So you've gone from shooting bullets to shooting hoops straight from Kundoola. So what immigrants were they?
Hungarian. So,
really?
Yeah, they literally only found this out trying to get a passport. So it was on a road trip.
What?
And had to get a passport, went to the embassy in Sydney. I was on a road trip. They were like, you've got to provide 3 forms of identification.
Yeah.
Birth certificate, citizenship papers, passport. And I was like, well, clearly if I had a passport, I wouldn't be here. So that's not working out. Called mum. Can you fax it through? That's another thing I want to talk about. Faxes, how they work. So mum was like, flick through birth citizenship papers, but no
like immigration.
And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, we were illegal immigrants. Like when she left Hungary, Cold War, they chose like Canada and Belga. So they chose, but it was awesome, like because parents, like, you'd have a bunch of other refugees coming through. Like, it's soft immigration policy back then, right?
Yeah,
so mum, literally, her job was a babysitter. So didn't speak a lick of English.
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses was the way she learnt the language. And it's pretty cool. So
my passport was it's not similar, but my parents immigrated my mum immigrated from England on a boat. And her name was different to her legal name when I was born. And then she got married after I was born. So she got married twice. Her name was changed. So it was incredibly difficult for me to get a passport because her immigration papers had a different last name. Like
I'd be gutted if mum got deported.
Birth certificate. Yeah.
I've just ruined my mum's life.
So was she illegal or was she just like not fully?
No, it was literally like illegal. Like when they were there, so the Australian or whatever chose, like, would have had like a third party external, like pay us money to send you wherever. Yeah. And they were like, they knew that you're going to be, you'd live in Balga for a period of time. You can choose to get out after, but you have to be there. Like, and so literally I remember my first memories was just like, Chinese, like
there's your girlfriends or
started young, but like everyone I'd have new best mates every week.
Wow.
Like new families come in, they're all working, they'll go to my mum. And so it was sick. And
so she was babysitting and you became friends with the kids.
Because there's new families coming through left, right and centre. So, and that was it. Like, I remember my very first memories was like going to Balga, like primary, pools, sneak under the fence, prank calls at Telstra phone boxes and all that sort of stuff.
So that means that you would have spoke Hungarian as your first language?
No, because I was born here. Okay. So sort of shifted. I speak like a little bit.
Apparently, it's the hardest language in the world to learn,
apart from English.
Fact. Oh, mate, the only words I knew growing up was like "Sia Hodvort," which is "How are you," and then "Enyatsi Koshalabda," which is "I play basketball."
Nice.
So like when I got back, like to go visit family in Hungary and whatnot. But so went. Balga and then went to Clarkson. So
Jesus,
I know. So it didn't get much better. And then finally,
my nephew just got that same scholarship at Woodvale.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he's in the wobble. Is that what they call it?
Yeah. What age? So year 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he plays the Joondalup Wolves or Stirling or Warwick.
Warwick, I think it is. Yeah, he's good. He's a shit little attitude, but he's good.
Well, if podcasts don't work out, be an agent, and then
he's a good kid. Harper, I won't say his last name, but he's a good kid, and he's
legal.
He's legal. He's gonna. I think he has massive talent, and when I watch, he's got that sort of real go-getter attitude. So excited to watch him improve over the years.
But his growth genes decide to go get him.
Days.
But I was going to say, as a WOG, I'm Italian. Exactly the same thing. My nonno was escaping war. Yeah, and they had Canada to choose from.
Oh wow.
Yeah, or it was Canada here, or one of the places in South America. So they chose here. So I've got WOG family in Canada.
Brazil or something? Or?
Yeah, it was Brazil.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, legit.
What's hard yarns in Brazilian or Spanish or Portuguese, is it?
In Italian, it's forte, but yarns would just be talk. So forte parlare.
Forte parlare.
Forte parliamo. Let's talk hard.
Yeah. Well, we said, we were just talking before the pod and we were talking, he's like, I've answered a lot of questions. It's just going to be similar. I bet you haven't talked about growing up and being an illegal immigrant.
No, absolutely not. So that's good. And Spud guy.
We love those. What's the little Hungarian dish, man, that I had?
Goulash.
Goulash.
Yeah.
I had that in Budapest, and it was like, it's a touristy thing to go have a goulash, but fucking just.
Yeah, I always thought that was where the prison was, but that's gulag.
We like growing up, because I got T. So my real name's not Greg. My real name's Gergelais, but obviously it was like if said it was gay. So
no,
mate, obviously got brutalised as like an adolescent.
You can hire a little gay.
Mate, correct. Like it was come like first day of school, roll call. I'm like, the G's are coming up, and then like it's go gurgly, back, and then like so. Obviously, I was just like, nah, screw this. At some age, playing basketball, people like gay, and they're like laughing at you, like you're a homo, and I'm like. So what? But
not that there's anything wrong with that.
But obviously back then it's not as progressive as we're in the world now. So I was just like, I'm going to choose name Greg. Right. So so that's sort of
Gurgelay.
Yeah. So that was great. And I always like even I remember I just did a keynote like the other week at a local government, and I remember someone in the crowd was like Gurgelay, like, and I was like,
you arsehole.
It was like him full nothing.
And it was literally like a mum who looked after me as a young, like it was my best mates growing up is like mum, and she was like, does anyone call? I was like, no, obviously no one calls.
That's my little girl.
Yeah, like stop doing it. But
so is that on your passport, or do you legally?
How do you spell it?
No, Gergely.
G-E-R-G-E.
or
G-E-R-G-G-O. So G-E-R-G-L-E-Y.
G-E-L-Y. So it's Gurgelay, but
Gurgelay.
Gurgelay.
Nice.
And it's obviously a
And what's your
common
home address?
Mum's maiden name.
But like I remember like so mum, I've like got these photos of a young fella like massive rat's tail, but like I wore like a suit for my year one photo, all white
That's
suit.
so
like,
funny.
because mum didn't like, it was just different customs. And
Yeah.
like the Wog Boy, the movie where it brings like that massive bread. Like that was, I remember we had like bring your own dish, and mum had brought like this full ceramic pot with like traditional goulash. But like it was like, for that though, it was bring cupcake stall like to make money, and mum's trying to sell off like goulash like for $2 or whatever for like, and I'm like, man, this is, and I at that time I was so young, I was like, this is cool. But even photos of like me in her overall, and then mum's like trying to get more ochre and Australian, so I remember being wearing like,
so she put meth in it.
But like what I'm wearing, I'm wearing like a flannel with like overalls.
That's awesome.
So now I'm just like
like a farmer.
Like, what is going on? And no wonder why people think I'm gay. Like, it's,
that's great.
So,
Fuck. There's another. It might be Salmale, same as the Romanians, like the cabbage in and meat.
Yeah,
I had some
I'm
at
not
this
sure.
Hungarian dude's house.
Goulash is the only thing, and then the other thing I've only found this out, which is amazing, is their traditional spirit. So like you got limoncello or whatever. They're called Palinka, which is like 70%. Which was amazing when I came back. Like, so I've never had it. Got married, went on a honeymoon, went and saw the family, and it's a custom, right? So I got home, like we got to my auntie's house late night, my wife and I, and she's like, "Oh, do you want a Palinka?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." Like, sure, I don't mind a drink. Had it, I was like, holy shit, this is amazing.
It's good.
And my wife's going to fall pregnant within 6 like, this is the best thing in the world, right? Like,
she's going to fall pregnant because of
I think that's I'm pretty sure that's the recipe for raunchy, isn't it? It's actually good.
But then it was like awesome, because then like my uncle, it's like a custom, so then at like 11 or 12, they're like traditional fire in the backyard, putting goulash in a pot, and then everyone's just smashing Palinka, and then like
how many shots get you pissed?
Oh mate, I reckon like 2.
Yeah, right.
But so then I just like when it was like duty free, like I was like, load me up with like bottles.
Wow.
And my uncle, his dad, like he so you're allowed like 50 or 100 litres for each individual over the age of 18. So he literally
to make,
yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, I thought you said to bring back to Australia.
No.
I was like, fuck,
like, so he was like, all right, sweet. So what he did was he built a home next to his son. So he was like, yeah, you've got 6 kids like over the age of 16. They're all, so he could do like 600
That's
litres.
awesome.
And just these massive tanks, and they put like, pear, just fermented fruit and alcohol. It's like moonshine, right? But that's all he did. Like as this old fella, like I rocked up there. He's like eating an onion on the porch.
Fucking hell, like, times are tough, eh?
Yeah, his like wife, full underarm hair, like chicken. I'm like, where am I? But this is amazing. Like, my wife's like,
authentic.
We've just come back from the Greek islands.
Santorini.
And then we're
got fucking Shrek eating an onion.
And then he's like, you want to play? I'm like, it's 9:30, mate. And he like has it, has a sleep, wakes up, does it again. But I brought it back, and it was amazing, because it was the best thing. Like, then after every time teammates or Bucks parties, I'm like, please don't bring it out. And then I'm like, it just made an absolute shit show.
Did it taste like? Was it taste?
It was actually good. Like it wasn't. No. Like there was different ones, and then they sell it like commercial ones where it's like a bit flavored, but it actually is like it's. Oh, mate, I'm a massive Fireball guy, so like it's like full sort burn. Of having them like holy shit, like
is that like grappa?
Yeah, it's that sort of stuff, right? Yeah. Like it's but it's good. Like I actually think the homemade's better than the commercial stuff.
Of course,
like they haven't ended up putting a million sugars
because it doesn't have a love.
No love. It's also more dangerous because if they fuck up the recipe, you go blind.
Oh, like mate, that was the thing. He was like,
it's true. That's why you go, I'm fucking blind. Like literally.
The funny thing is like taking that through customs, like because I had it and they're like, what is this? And I'm like, just please don't open and smell because I'd be like, this is
adrenochrome.
Like 90% or whatever. But love it.
What? So they didn't smell it. They just took your word for it.
No, they didn't even check it. No. Oh, mate, it's like I had more. I had my wife and the 4 litres, and then obviously I'm always buying. So I would have had more alcohol than what was expected.
Yeah,
so
that's sick.
Got through.
Yeah, allegedly.
Just
like his parents got through. So does that mean it was Hire a Hungarian name, or you changed that as well to be more English?
So Hiri is the so my old man is Romanian. Yeah. So that's there, but my mum's name's Sorta. So but like I've kept my last name. Parents split up, and so my brother and my mum are all sorted. So I reckon I'm the only one, bar Kennards. I'm the only hire in WA. That's pretty common. So,
but that's it's actually one of those like the immigrants come to another country to create success for their children, and you're like that perfect example, like a real genuine example of
the
like,
real life boy. No,
I think Balga, from memory, that's a international school as well. Hey, where kids go to learn English.
Oh, I wouldn't even have a clue, mate. Yeah. Well, I left at year 3, so
well, everyone graduates Balga in year 3, so you're doing well.
All got bullied my way out of year 3, so I don't. It's funny because even I was on a selection panel for an awards last year, and I think it was like Girraween or another school was like up for nomination, and they were like, I'm just using this example, they were going up against like Trinity and like this other like St. Mark's or something, and I'm like, what chance? And so like even without listening, I was like, Girraween wins, and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, nah. Underdog, the underdog. For them to even be a finalist is
has
like,
to be huge.
And they're like, they just taught the kids how to tie a shirt. I'm like, nah, it's awesome. Like that's sick.
It's a win.
Not Trinity or whatever like that. So
they've got. Mate, I used to be a teacher for 10 years, and the Greenwood have an ESL program, and I'm pretty sure Balga have the ESL program. But those kids were the best because
what's that English speaking?
English as a second language.
Oh, okay.
So those kids loved it, man, because the fact that they were learning and at school and not dodging bombs, they like had the best fucking
Which is nuts, right? I when I worked in Leederville, the private school there, I don't know where it is, same deal. They had kids that didn't speak English and didn't realise, like I was running a basketball clinic and there's like a plane went off and like kids would like the normal buy or like sort of knowledge or whatever, like sort of hiding or like scared.
PTSD.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just like, or they wouldn't like me yelling like in terms of games because it sort of like reminded them of I was like, man, what traumatic experiences did they live through?
It's one of those things of context, isn't it? Like you got to have some gratitude for where we
live. For sure.
Yeah,
crazy.
But I was in Karratha and caught up with my mate Sheep, Ryan Coleman, who got sort of cut off during COVID, him and his missus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he got a job. He's a Sparky.
Yeah.
Never taught in his life, man. His missus is a primary school teacher. He got a job teaching year 4.
In Karratha?
No, in, sorry, I should have said in Moldova, I think it was, and in South America. So she was teaching Moldova. He got a job in South America teaching year 4, and he's an electrician.
Why is he in Karratha?
I met them. They've moved to Karratha. They've moved to Karratha now. So I was up there for gigs last week, and they messaged because his missus got a job up there, and we were chatting, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I had to teach English to kids in one of the South American countries, but then they moved to Moldova."
Yeah,
and while she was teaching at Moldova, the Ukrainian war happened, and their school was shaking. Like the bombs had gone off, and the the principals were like just trying to be cool, like, yeah, no, there's nothing to worry about. And all the kids, she said, were like listening, everything they said. Is this a test? It was the easiest class she ever taught because they just wanted to get out of
But I feel like it would be the best test, more so obviously that, but you can't be wrong. Like if you're an English teacher, they're not proving it like
100%.
no, you're incorrect. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like if you went to a school and teach chemistry, like nah, you're
Yeah,
yeah.
Trust my word. Like,
Yeah, but he's a Sparky, so some of them spoke better than him, he said.
Yeah.
But yeah, when they left, like they were like, what the fuck?
That's crazy.
They were playing it down. And then after they realized what was happening with the war and that, because it was, they were feeling the bombs hit and the school was shaking, they had to take... Later on, when it all settled and they moved, they were like, "What's the go?" Because there was Americans in the school, so and the diplomats were all there. They had to leave.
Oh my goodness!
And the principal said, "Oh no, we were absolutely shitting ourselves.
But you remain calm for the
They were like, we thought we were dead." So,
oh my god!
Yeah, I was just thinking those kids love being at school compared to my kids at Ellenbrook.
Like, fuck you, sir.
Yeah, like, fucking suck my dick, sir. Fuck. I won't, but Gay will. No.
But certainly, obviously, you are a good feel-good story. If that's didn't realize you were illegal. Well, not you, but your parents were illegal immigrants. So to go on to what you've achieved before we go on to where you're at now, how many championships did you play in?
Yeah, 4. I won 4.
Won 4?
And then played, I think, in 6 grand finals.
Wow.
Yeah, in 10 years.
And your final game was a championship?
Final game, was on Melbourne, which was, we've never won on like the home court, which was...
bit upsetting.
No, it was awesome. I loved it. Because when you win a championship, which you win your first one, you're like, man, this is sick. This is the best day of my life. My wedding and what.
If the wife's listening.
but for my children. But anyway, it was really good. In the next 2 sort of years, like we won and you're like, oh, this is easy. And then you lose a couple and it gets back there. But what I loved most was I think after maybe the year 3 one, first one like...
Is that a Bowger or the third year?
The first one when it was like... You're in the already in the crowd, and it was sick because we beat Adelaide. We played game 3 on a Sunday at 12 o'clock. So I was sourced by 3 o'clock, and we hadn't won one ever. I hadn't won one. They sent us to Bali because our biggest sponsor was Alcohol Think Again. So they're like, we can't have you guys messing up in the newspaper. So they're like, go to Bali
where alcohol mixes with Australians even better.
It was the most idiotic thing in hindsight. They were like, here's 20,000 or whatever it was, and we had this 8
fuck off out of here
bedroom villa in Canggu. It's the first time I felt like I was LeBron James.
No Australian
budget. And I was just like, man, what is going on? I was like, it was stupid. And they brought us back, and then, which was like a recruiting pitch. Guys, did you guys go to Bali last year? And they're like, yeah. So we won it, and everyone's like, Bali, and then they're like, no. That was idiotic because I was like, that was stupid. But and then 3, but then Championship 3, it was a really cool thing where our coach Matt Nielsen, who's now over at the Spurs, he made it to the club. He was like, when we win, fuck off. He goes, we're going to have this moment for an hour. Team will just be able to sink a few beers, enjoy it, and then we'll bring family in after 45. And I actually was like, that was really cool because, you get caught up and then you're like, there's media and there's photos and you're just like, whatever. And you sort of, you just want to have a beer with your mates and share that. So being on game, Championship 4 on the home court, on there, it was literally us. It was whoever families travelled across, the players, and then just us. And it was nothing. It was just cool. We went to the lounge and we're just still in our uniforms and drank as much, and then ran out of grog on the plane, and the fans were there, and then because I guess people weren't expecting us to win. The piss up was at Fremantle Cricket Club. I wasn't expecting this on my last celebration.
Thinking about Bali,
correct. How far we've turned, and then I lost all my my championship rings and forgot everything.
Oh my god!
Oh no!
Yeah, they gone, or you lost them and found them again.
Mate, I'm a forgetful person. We had it would have been maybe year 3 or something. I got done and they were parade in the city the next day. I dropped the championship trophy one year. It broke.
Oh my God.
I was just like done. And so then, and obviously everyone's like, oh, Greg. And I was always expecting like when contract time came, they'd go, we're not renewing your contract. Not because you're not playing well. You're just irresponsible. I played hard, but I partied a lot harder. And so I was just like, and I'd go, fair enough. Like, so... But I got there, I was in all my like stuff, and then I remember like leaving and going like got home, and Ains, my wife's like, "Where's like your shoes, your uniform, the championship ring?"
Who's this
playing
with you?
Oh, fuck, I don't even have my wedding ring, and so I'm like, "Oh shit!" And then I was like, right, and I was like, I'll do it, I'll check it later, and so then I'm like, it'll come up anywhere. Message in the club, they're like, I don't know where it is, and I'm like, oh man, this is like bad, and so then I put up this tweet. Next thing you know, it's like gone viral and everyone. And then I get this like phone call like the next day, and they're like, "Hey, I think we've got a bag and it's yours." And I'm like,
"What sort of bag?"
I've never seen that before, officer.
A backpack or a 25er. And so anyway, they're like, "It's got a Wildcats logo, GH and 4. I'm like, it's clearly my fucking bag.
Yeah.
And it was security, like the security guards. And I was like, were they never ever going to like tell me? And so then I had like, but it was like annoying that I had to like go, drive there, give him like a signed jersey and like all this to get my own stuff.
He was just doing his job, securing the bag.
So, but it worked out. But yeah, no, so yeah, won that 4, but it was crazy. It's been amazing. Like obviously winning the 4, I retired in 2019. COVID hit, and I've been playing 3-on-3 basketball, which is like the 2020 of basketball.
Yeah.
And so it was sick. Like I got done, played in Puerto Rico for tournaments, Amsterdam for like a week. So that was obviously the best time of my life.
Amsterdam's very average.
And so it was all this, and then like traveling like Indonesia and Philippines, all these countries.
Is that playing for Australia?
Yeah. So it was like nothing I expected. And then I did that for 3 years, and then I was like, Com Games came up. So it was an Olympic sport. 3-on-3 is now in the Olympics. So I decided to do it. Then it got sort of delayed, and I was like, no chance. And then 2020, like last year, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put myself up for selection. Like I obviously still play somewhat. And it sort of shows where I was at in life. And so they were like, all right, we're going to obviously select our camp tryouts or the selection camp. And I got this email, mate calls me. Jesse's like, oh, you get an email? Are you in the squad? I'm like, yeah, I'm in the squad. So I like read the squad. I get this email whilst I'm in the drive-thru of KFC ordering my stock standard. It's
like Dane Swan.
Congratulations, you've got a camp in like 2 months. I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like a world. Maybe I shouldn't have these wicked wings, but so I put myself through that, and then went to Com Games last year, like and got silver medal. And
who did we lose to?
England by.
Fuck, that's so weird.
It was
you wouldn't. Well, I think English. I don't think basketball.
Yeah, but that's why
like Cole Legacy maybe.
no, like it's crazy. That's why 3x3 is appealing, because like
was it 3-on-3 Com Games?
Correct.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
So like Latvia won Olympic gold, and they're never going to compete in 5-on-5 because realistically you actually only need 2 studs. Like whereas if you're playing like Team USA, you need a 10, 12 and incredible players. So like you only need 2 and ideally 3 great players. So like England, because it's the Com Games on home soil, they like let's get our best players, and they're going. So they spent like 6 months like training him and sending him around the world to verse us, and we would have been comfortable. Like I tore my groin in the second game, so
repeat from Bali.
From the Palinka that I got from trying to make baby number 3. But so it's amazing, and we're sort of saying before with the ultra marathon, like what you realise your body can do. Like when you're like mine, because I was like I'm done, and so I was like, just get me to like the medal games and professional sports. They'll give you drugs. Like I played with a like
Grammar coach.
AC joint where they just jab it up, and you're like, yeah, it's fine. And now like I've obviously got issues with it, but when you're over at Com Games, it's AOC like stuff, so you don't. You're not doing any of that. Like they will say, have you had ibuprofen before? Have you had like Panadol? And you're like, yeah, of course. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that's fine. Like,
Yeah.
and so I'd be like, just jab it up. And they're like, no, we can't because you could have further injury. I'm like, I'll sign a waiver. I don't care. I don't want to be feeling it. But yeah, finally got to like that last game, and sort of the coach was like, "You're not Greg Hire, like that. Your normal like run around. You just have to be like a little bit subdued." But amazing.
Now you're gay.
Yeah, we lost, so it's not a really good Hollywood ending.
Well, still second best in the world is awesome.
Or in the Commonwealth. So
yeah.
All the
so you wanted them to jab up your groin?
Oh, I would have done anything. Like,
If I don't want to feel my groin, I just have a bunch of M.
Oh fuck!
But that spins me out because I saw that they added to the Olympics.
Yeah.
And I've never actually spoke to anyone about 3-on-3 because my understanding of 3-on-3 is it's like and one street ball.
Yeah.
But what's your main difference between 5 and 3? And is there a team of 5, 2 on the bench? How does it even work?
So you got a team of 4.
So just one on the bench.
One on the bench. It's way more physically demanding than a normal game because,
of course, like
I'm 5-on-5. I had rode Bryce Cotton's coattail for the last 3 years. Stand in the corner and he won me. I didn't win championship.
Yeah.
Bryce won me championship.
Everyone puts Greg in the corner.
So like, but that's why I like 3x3, 3-on-3 is it's pure basketball. It's
That's
like
sick.
you can't hide. Like they'll pick on you if you can't play defense. You get the ball. It's like why we started playing basketball. It's like it is street ball. The difference is it's obviously. So street ball, like where you get scored on check it's constant. Like it's like F45 on steroids.
Yeah,
like
right.
You score, you throw it out, it's right back in. It's physically like fouls aren't that common. You can't get fouled out. So like
sick.
Once 7 fouls, it's like a lot more. Other teams score 2 points. So it's that element. Like it hurts.
That's pretty cool. So if you're 7 fouls, then it starts doubling.
Correct.
Wow,
and
that's
if
smart.
it gets up to 10 for that, so you can't just like go.
Yeah.
But it is crazy. And so
What's the length of quarters or halves?
it's first to 21 points or 10 minutes. So, but
I like this, man. This is
games
cool.
rarely get to 10. People score, but if you get down to 10 minutes, mate, like you're spent.
Cooked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you're
Wow.
like it's the most physically challenged I've ever felt. Like there's times where like I've been. I'm like there is no I can't move and I'm like no, I got to like there's possessions.
You're like boxing cardio nearly.
Yeah, and it's funny like when I made the Puerto Rican, we should do the qualify first time ever for the men's team, and I remember getting smashed and it was like you'd taken off a concussion, right? And but we had a guy who tore his groin as well, so the coach they were like you're gonna have to like sub out. And I was like, no, I'm fine. And I'm like, can't even like go.
It's
around.
not even your coach. You're talking to the opposition.
And so the umpire was like, it's not safe. And then they like they're like, yeah, but life's more important. And I was like, not right now. Like, and they're like, what is going on? But I was like, you can't sub out. Like, and so it is nuts. And so even the World Cup was just in Austria last week.
Did you win that game though? Or did you lose?
No,
by
we
like
won.
20?
No, we won. No, got it through. But like the tournament in Austria, you see it like if teams lose a player, rolled ankle, whatever, they're in a bad position. Yeah. So I love it because like for me, again, you get to travel around the world. It gives a little bit of parity for like, mate, Mongolia are like a team that are known because they've invested. Like who would have ever thought Mongolians are ever playing? Latvia won their very first medal ever. Because of 3x3 basketball. Wow. So for me, like Netherlands, like they've done really cool things. And
Netherlands dudes are huge as well,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
They're just brick shit asses.
Yeah. So like Serbia is a powerhouse. Like Nikola Jokic just actually spoke about it on an interview. They're like talking about playing, and he goes, mate, you can't find a court free right now in Serbia. Yeah. He goes, everyone's playing 3-on-3 because like that's actually more popular than now it is because
especially like his success at the moment. Like,
It's
I guess the good thing is 5-on-5 will never lose its popularity.
No, absolutely. No.
And 3-on-3 is just going to come up and match it, right?
Right. I don't think he'll ever compete. I think, I mean, as a traditionalist and purist, I'm always like, but for me, I look at it like young kids. I coach my son's team, which is like one of the most challenging things in my life, herding cats. But I actually think that's where they can play 3-on-3 basketball, like even because it's like spacing, right? It's like Oz kick, there's 40 kids around a football.
Yeah.
Like 3-on-3, like it's wide, like you can do it, they'll pass it around. So I think in essence, some coaches think it's a hindrance because like they don't want their own kids like bullying, like smashing people and whatnot. But I think you know, what do you, as a parent, what do you always, like, my kid doesn't touch the basketball enough, my kid doesn't touch the footy enough. Like, in that, you're actually forced because you have to do it. So.
It's interesting. Good. Like, while you're on that, like the parents coaching and stuff like that, the pressures they go on, the selflessness as well. They put in so much time. It's unpaid, you know, and they're trying to teach little fucking shits. Really, let's be honest. Like my nephew, his team. Like
they're little shits. Like my nephew, his team.
I love him, but like they're all like they're going through those changes where they're being rebellious. They don't want to.
Imagine doing it for a career.
Yeah, exactly. But like Elena,
life skills. So I taught. I was drama trained, phys ed major, drama minor. Yeah, and then did my first relief. Science. I loved it, so I did switch program. I ended up doing special needs kids for science and maths. For years, I had like my own program, and then the last 3 years of teaching, they gave me ATAR chemistry because I'd put in fucking like every year they would look who's the hard class, who's this kid, the shit kids in air quotes that aren't shit kids. They just teachers don't have any personality and don't know how to have a laugh. So I get the hard classes, and then eventually I was like, look, man. 6 years I've had the hardest classes, and it's not just once. Normally you'd have them once, and that's it. I would have them for maths and science 3 out of 5 periods a day. And then they were like, all right. So they gave me ATAR chemistry and extension, and then just one special, and it was the dream, like for the last year.
Because you have that combination of going, I got the shit kids, which I think like, I mean, I embrace, like I love going to doing that, but then you've got, sometimes you just need some time off.
100%. And even it's mind numbing because they're at such a low level. Every day you're just trying to build these low level skills. So mentally it was not very challenging for me. The challenge was to figure out how to put it in a way that was fun, engaging, and they were learning something. So that was quite rewarding. But then doing ATAR Chem, I was learning stuff again myself, which is really cool because if I didn't quite get something, I'd make sure I knew the insides and outs of it, so then I could explain it well to the kids. But it was wicked. Like, and there is no such thing as shit kids. Like,
I mean, I called them.
I always say shit. I say shit. No, I would agree. Like in social sports and stuff, like that would be a pain in the ass.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But when it's like they go, oh, they're just a shit kid. It's like, nah. Like every kid inherently wants to learn. Like it's a weird thing. They want to learn.
And to see the progress in these kids that, like Elena has put in all this time, not just to her kids who are in that team, like all the kids in that team, and it's selfless. Like it's selfless to try and watching them develop from, like I said, little shits to kids who really want to learn and want to better themselves and get better. It's really good to watch from the outside.
You're a little bit luckier, especially, but when it comes to getting, if it's a mixed sex class, it's always hard as well. But with young kids, they don't see you as Wildcat, a superstar. That you're just some kid's dad trying to tell them what to do, or no?
Nah, it's a bit of both. Sometimes because like you've got dads that are like, oh, it's Perth. So I've even I was joking around as one of the dads is like, you don't realise how lucky you are. You've got like a 4-time NBL champion, or like the other day we were going to watch the Lynx, and I was walking by Bendat Stadium, and there's all the championship photos on the walls, like on the windows, and my son's mate was like, oh, hey, there's your dad. And my son was like, my son doesn't like the Wildcats. He goes for the Cairns Taipans because he's a massive reptile fiend. So he like loves that, and he loves Queensland. So he's a Brisbane Lions fan, and like he was like, is there any other football team? And I was like, let's stay away from the Gold Coast. Like, let's go to Brisbane. And he goes for the Cairns Taipans just because of Snakes. So it's like actually frustrating because I'm like, man, like we've been in the Eagles club rooms. I'm like, go say g'day to these guys coming, and he's like, Dad, I don't really care. When's Lockie Neal coming to town? But he's still like, and it's but so like, in that setting, they like, and even he had a year 6 guy come down to mentor my son, and he goes, oh, your dad's the Wildcats player, and he's like, yeah, cool, like the Taipans beat the Wildcats in the league. But in saying that though, like you talk about that, I think like life lessons, like everyone, like even when you transition from sport to the business world or real world, I'm like, sport is the real world. Like it's not, the life lessons are freaking amazing. And so like, you know, when we first started, I remember like I wrote up this lesson plan. I'm sure maybe it's like teaching, right? And I was like, this will be good. And like within 30 seconds, I was like, man, what is this? And I put it away, but I had like 3 kids that wouldn't leave their mum, like on the side. other kids that couldn't have anything, and it was the growth in those kids throughout the season. They would know if they were winning or not. I would know. We got absolutely pumped. We won a few games, but I say, there's some kids that might not score for 2 or 3 years. but they still rock up just with
I love that
energy. And I remember there was this one kid.
It's me clubbing with the girls.
Was struggling to he doesn't dribble, but rocks up every week, and he's just this most resilient kid. And on the last week, he stole the ball.
Sick.
And the parents were like, "Oh, well done, mate." And he looked and just smiled, and I was like, "Man, that's so good."
Yeah.
And so I go on the weekend, and I was watching my nephew play, and there's players yelling at coaches. I'm seeing parents stand up in the corner, instructing, and I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
From this age of 6 and 8, we have just this pure, and it's they love it, right? And we teach them. And there was a coach there that our team got better, and they were winning, and they were bullying, they were holding their ball above their heads, to our kids who are 5 and 6 versus 8 years old. And I'm just whatever. And then the next time we play him, doing well, and the coach is goes, "You guys should be embarrassed. We should be
at 8 years old.
I think he's 7, 8 years old, and I'm going, really?" And I just said, mate, there's my kids. They're twerking. Whatever. But I love it. My sanity towards the end, I was I'm done. Oz kick, you can come in and do it. But
you need so much patience,
mate. Absolutely. Yeah. No. But I think that's my parenting style. My wife always says, for me, I'm trying to talk through it, and even these I look at it and go, again, how many of these guys will become pro, or even just playing representative basketball, your nephew? It's statistics are against them. Yeah. So for me, it's if those kids are excited to rock up, develop communication skills, how to work together, how to embrace failure in a good way. That's my win, right?
Super important that embracing failure,
and then being resilient from and not giving participation awards. I think it's important when they're 6, 7. 8, but as you get older, you still need to understand the value of winning, the value of losing as well.
Absolutely. No, mate, it's even when you watch they turn off the scoreboard, and I'm like, kids are smart. They're down 80-0. Yeah. They can't tell me they're there's 0-0.
Yeah.
Is that the score?
You don't have to protect them from that either. They see worse things at home and in on TV.
I think learning the value in being strong in a loss and holding composure, being respectful and shaking the opposition's hands when you lose is very important. But then fucking hold on to that and then use that as your drive to go, right, fuck, I don't want to feel like that again. I want to win. So it's okay to have that aspirations to win, that drive to be better, but obviously be admirable and be respectful in a loss.
And then crush them.
Teaching my nephew, teaching anyone, teaching my daughter, it's not that it's okay to lose, but to lose, to lose with grace.
Yeah.
It's a difference.
I think, I say this when I do keynotes, or I say to my son, and it's funny because he'll lose and he'll go, "It's okay to lose." I'm like, yeah, it's okay to lose. But and he's like, well, and it's if I learn from it, absolutely, brother. You don't know if you're going to do it cross country and you're doing it I want that feeling. If you don't win, it's good, but then what are you doing to work? It's not a bad thing, and I always say that. I think our greatest growth is from our darkest times, and so my greatest wins have come from our biggest losses. We had to lose a few grand finals to win a grand final, and I say that naturally, society, and we've got this label that failure is a bad thing. We freaking hate it. No one looks at the Eagles at the bottom of the ladder and goes, "Sick, that's awesome." I didn't walk off the Wildcats game when I lost and was like, "Oh, that was really cool." Yeah. But I always say this, my son learnt walking from failure. He didn't just stand up all of a sudden and go "Oh, I'm ready to walk." Human nature, he's evolution, all these sorts of things. But as we get later in life, we're hardwired to hate failure, and that's that fear of flight response, and it was just a good thing, right? If you're not fearful of a bank robber coming in and you're I don't care, you're gonna get shot, right? But I think that is it. My son, 9 months old, and it's part of why I sort of retired in that sense. Wasn't fearful of failure, learns how to walk. 5 years old, rides his bike. I'm next to him. He's like, "Dad, piss off." I'm really good. Now at 7, failure now becomes this validation. And so externally, you know, he loses and he goes like other people are telling him, oh, it's a bad thing, or and intrinsically egotistical, he's like going, oh, maybe it is, right? And so as we get older, that fear comes worse. But absolutely, right? Like, sure, you know, you were sort of speaking at the very start, like your very first podcast you watch, and you're like, man, I was shit.
Yes.
Right? Like, but then you're like, I watch it, learn, I get growth,
100%.
Growth, right? But, and we all say that it's normal, but again, we hate failure.
Well,
we hate making mistakes. We hate losing.
You see Giannis.
Yeah, I loved it. But in that setting, right? Like
incredible.
as an elite athlete, I went pussy. Right? Like I was like, do I want it? But then I'm like, man, like I actually did love it, right? Like it was measured. He knew he was waiting for it for a year.
Yes.
Like absolutely. But I think for that, like absolutely, I think as elite athletes, you're still going to be like ingrained in that and that. Like that's that competitive desire. Yeah. But even like the guys, like people like, oh, it's not the Mamba mentality, you know, like the Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. But like he would have not said that, and you're like, no, that's a lie, because there's clips of him saying that as well. Yeah. So, you know,
he would have just worked harder.
Right, absolutely, yeah. And what I do hope is that Giannis like does win one and can like go back and go
fucking see.
Correct. But I did love it. I loved
for people that don't know what Giannis said, they were like, "Has this season been a failure?" Right?
Yeah.
And he just said, "No, it's just a learning process on the way to success."
Yeah. And I love that. More so when he went back at the report and was like, you don't get a promotion every year, you know, like, and all that. And I think that is it, like that purpose. If he doesn't grow from it, or they get worse, or he, you know, all that sort of stuff. But right way, perfect.
Yeah, I love it.
But I guess those sorts of pressures do come back on elite athletes quite a lot. And that's why I find it quite, and this segues into what you're doing now with the mental health stuff. Those pressures are obviously especially at the elite level. Yeah. Fucking the social media, like media, news, just people in general being in the public eye. It's so much more than it used to be. Yeah. So that's added pressures on top of what they're already experiencing with their own self, you know, pressures of
expectations
of how they're going to achieve their goals, how they're going to perform nightly.
How they're going to identify.
And it's quite interesting, because I do know that obviously exercise is a very it's 1.5 times better than any sort of medication we can use in regards to mental health. But I've always found that strange. There's so many athletes, and I guess it's the combination of that. I did also read a study where too much exercise can actually
be detrimental.
Yeah, it can go the other way, which is what's happening with these elite sort of athletes. But the pressures added with the probably overstimulation might be a factor, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously being in that space heavily, like COVID sort of magnified it quite a bit, right? Like one, when that structure is taken away from an individual, like, you know, like we're habitual as humans. So, you know, 70% of our day is habits or routine, right? Like from what you're doing on that, the standard 9 to 5, if you live that life, right? So take that away from your life, messes you up completely, right? Like, so imagine a swimmer that's for 15 years of their life looking at a black line that is like, hey, come here in the gym, you're at 6 o'clock, 7:30, you're eating, you're going to get physio at the gym, and then that's it, their life. And then all of a sudden, they might be doing some sort of study and whatever, but they don't have that structure in life.
Black lives matter.
So then when you look at sports, like say professional sports, like I think Black Dog Institute might have done something with their AS. I think there was like maybe a pretty significant amount of percentage, I think like maybe 42 or 44% of athletes had suffered from a mental health condition in that, like sort of from an elite standpoint.
Was this through the pandemic?
Yeah, and I think obviously taking that structure but taking away the competitive sort of side to it and whatnot.
So once they've retired, you mean? Or
currently, like in terms, it was a pretty, there's above, like, you know, you sort of say, sorry, 44 might have been like 30, but like 1 in 4 suffer, but like it was higher from an athlete perspective. Yeah. But I think
surely,
because I think it's the external factors, so injury, form slumps, contract,
media,
that validation, your own motivation and whatnot. So I think it's highlighted. I think it's more so because it's media driven. So like you hear, you know, what 10 years ago, right, like would have still had the same statistics. It's just Ian Thorpe or any other athlete isn't opening up because of stigma.
Yeah.
And it's just the same in the general community sense. Like 30, 40 years ago, we know of the uncle that was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
We know of the crazy auntie, and, you know, like mental health conditions have always just been there. It's just like more and more prominent because statistically there's more research and data highlighting this, right? Like I say this, like from a mental health sector, like I go, you know, family members, you know, so like, but they just were like, oh, no, they didn't take their own life. Like it was, you know, issues because there was still that stigma and that perception in the community. So I think it's highlighted more now because it's, you know, say one athlete comes out, it's like, oh, you're a hero, right?
Yeah.
And it's being, and absolutely, I think you need to normalize that from your role models and your heroes because we see that sport, and right or wrong, progressive in that sort of space, but highlights societal issues and change that, right? Like, and so more and more those individuals highlighting that they deal with something can be powerful. So
I remember Wayne Schwass was one of the ones that was the most important,
right?
Because coming from the alpha community of AFL,
he
was one of the from my memory in my time, it was one of the early people that came out, but only once he retired, right?
Yeah, no, mate, I say this now, mate, like, you know, in my 10 years, I can't obviously speak and now what's happening, but say I had 10 clubs and there's 12 or 15 rosters, so like 150 a year, there wouldn't be much turnover. But say in that 10 years, 280 or 300 people go through the system in that 10-year span, right? So statistics will show 1 in 4 suffer from a mental health condition, just in general population, right? Adults. 2 in 10 years came out and were open and saying that. Why? Like stigma, but it's a liability.
Came out
sense,
with the mental
right?
health.
Like I struggled, right?
Yeah.
You know, Brad Robbins, and who I work alongside, you know, he's only been opening up about it in the last 2 years because of obviously like that perception, and like retired because of mental health, but then said, oh no, I retired because of physical ailments, right? Like, so there's no doubt, I reckon, it'd be fine if Bryce Cotton goes, hey, I struggle for mental health, like depression, anxiety, whatever it may be, any mental health condition. They'll be like, yeah, sweet, no worries. We'll deal with it. We'll help support you because they're the best player in the world. In Australia, right? Yeah. But it would be like if the 10th or 12th guy was like, man, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
That bias, that coach goes, I don't know if I could handle him with 2 minutes left because I wouldn't know if anxiety would kick in, right? Like, but in saying that, they might have been dealing with that for the last 6 years, and they would never. It's just still that natural bias.
And if they had had that help,
correct.
And
so and there's no doubt they come at a liability. So, like, there's still this massive stigma. I look at AFL, perfect example. Like, we're still honest, right? But Buddy Franklin says, I struggle from a mental health condition. What's the first thing that comes? Oh, no, it's not mental health, it's drugs. Yeah. Right? Like, it's still often, and it could be, right? Like, there's no doubt about that, but there's still that perception. Like, there's that.
And the flip side, when they get caught with drugs, it's mental health.
No, absolutely. And that is the thing.
Which is true.
Does that dilute the real problem?
Yeah, and this is the thing. I always say that, like, there's mental health conditions, and we sort of said it's the environment that you're in that leads to a mental health condition that you can't control. But there is a lot of other people that we know that are, you know, coping and thriving, that deal with a mental health condition that we still don't even know about, right? Like, there'll be people that you walk along the road, or like a successful entrepreneur, and they're like, fuck, they're amazing. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, and they also have OCD and bipolar disorder, right? But they just don't disclose it. So it's not like, but naturally, like, there's athletes there, like, if, say I missed a free throw and I was open about saying I deal with anxiety. Yeah. People would naturally go, was he shitting his pants when he was like shooting those free throws? And like, absolutely. But guarantee there's other people there that are shitting their pants and they're not diagnosed with anxiety too. You know what I mean? So I just think that. But I think more and more needs to be done in space. Unfortunately, I reckon, like, there's more and more talk about mental health. And so when we talk about, like, the sector in itself, it's monetized. So, like, people can make money from it, profiteer from it. So then, say, like, from a professional sporting sense, they're like, well, we might need to get positioned, we might get funding from the government, and then is it the actual right work being done in that sort of space? So, like, even that prevention education, I think, like, education can be done at like 12 years old or 11 years old. Like, then that can be done at a sports club. Like, start educating those kids on, like, because this is that, like, build that resilience, like build that, provide that comfort at a young age. Not so then when they get to elite sport, they're like, holy shit, what have I just got into?
Yeah.
I can't now deal with this, and I don't have the support mechanisms in place. So
I think that's a perfect example is Delby and myself have built resilience. We're very lucky to have been raised in an environment where our parents probably instilled that resilience in us. So when it comes to situations like talking openly about our mental health and how we're feeling, people say, wow, you're so brave and it's so good that you're speaking like that. But for me and Delby says this quite often, this is just quite normal for us to
I guess
talk
because
like
we've been doing it since we were young.
Correct. Yeah.
So for us, maybe we haven't had,
yeah,
like our brain hasn't had to deal with the coping mechanism in that way. We can just talk about how I'm feeling, or
whereas you're suggesting that potentially instilling it into kids and as they're growing for parents who don't necessarily,
because not every parent knows how to talk, man.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Like,
we're all trying to figure this out.
As much as you guys talk about it naturally, I never diminish the value in that though.
Yeah,
because like there's one person that may have not heard that message and the power of you talk about the negativity of social media, but then there's positivity that someone scrolling sees that on a reel that's been like down and goes, that's amazing. Like I really that resonates with me and that shares that. For me, that's like the power of that vulnerability is like sharing.
That's the word, vulnerable.
That your story, which generally is what changes human behavior, right? Like stories resonate with us the same way we're on a podcast and we're sharing our stories. Like, and you go, oh, that's what I did. That drives behavior, which ends up driving action.
Yes.
And it's I always it's that's why I love like with my it's funny like with my son, and I think I grew up in a pretty
because your parents would have been pretty shut off. Would that?
Mum was fine, but like done. So, but like emotion like.
My dad was an old school Italian.
Mate, exactly. So my dad has been in my life for I don't know how long. Like, that's been far removed. But yeah, like there's no, I don't think there's obviously moments that I go, oh, that was really cool, but like negative bias as well. That tends to it, right? But yeah, very, discussing emotions and get over it, whatnot, and in that sort of sense. So as an adolescent, I struggled a lot with like that, and was doing things that you shouldn't be doing or whatever. So when I look at my son, like I remember flipping out one time when I was young. When my son was young, and I just had no sleep, and my son just was like going around in circles. And I was like, man, and I just had enough, and I like yelled at him, and I went into back into my room. I was putting him to sleep, and I just like was instantly like bawling out, crying. Yeah. And I was like, man, and my wife was like, what's wrong? I said, the first moment I was like my dad. Like I just lost control. Yeah. And I was just, I was smashed, and my son wouldn't have understood and whatever and what might be. And I always say that like rupture and repair is like so big. Yeah. You're not a perfect human, right? Yeah. Like no one's perfect. Yes. Like we're works in progress.
We are imperfect. Yeah.
Right. And so like I, was speaking, it's like even when I say to my son now, like, when he's tired or whatnot, and I'm very patient, but it's like, mate, talk to me through this. Like, and that sucks. So sometimes I'm like, I got to get a house in 10 minutes. I've got to go to work and I've got a meeting. But I'll say this like when I meet, I'm like, I'm sorry, like I'm late, and I know it's unprofessional. But I had to I was teaching my son through something like, it's okay to talk, like you were fearful, you were pissed off at your sister, like all this. But we're so easy to just like throw away emotion.
Just fuck off out of the house.
Absolutely. And it's even
with
like
no resolution.
Correct. And go to your son or like, hey, how are you? What is day like? And your son goes like, yeah, it was good. Who do you play with? No one. What do you learn? Nothing.
Yeah.
Like,
nothing.
Oh, sweet. Like, you know what I mean? So like for me, like I even said this to my wife, like I asked my son, can you teach me what you learnt today? And then he just went off, and was like going. I think that value in time and giving attention to kids, because they're so like, as a teacher, mate, I love that you sort of said like no kids shit kids. Like I work in Banksy Hill Detention Centre. As much as those kids and what they go, like if you know what they went through in their life, you'd understand. Well, maybe not. That would put some perspective on why they act like they are.
They still need to own their own decisions, but at the same time, you can understand why they've made a choice that's led them to there. Because if you haven't got the skills,
it's a learned thing, behavior, right? Like no one wakes up and goes, "I'm going to do this because that's how they've learnt it from somewhere." Absolutely, they need to take responsibility, no doubt. But
honestly, as a teacher, half of the incidents, I would say 80% of incidents with any hard kid is always because the adult is not acting like an adult.
Correct.
They're putting the kid into the position where they're going to lash out because they don't have the skills. And then the adult thinks just because they're the adult that they're right. And they put this kid in no other option than to yell and lash out and be like, well, fuck you, because they make them feel that way.
It happens in Auskick, mate. I say this, you know, or basketball. And I've been fortunate because at basketball, I go like, hey, if you want to provide me any education, you can coach.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm coaching my way, and hey, I'll get them to help out in drills, and I'll get them to play
parents
against,
or kids.
Yeah. No, like, but the parents, like, and I'll say like, this is my wave, and if you don't, go to another team.
Yeah.
Like, I like, this is it, and we'll learn a lot more than just basketball here, right?
Yes.
But I say there's an Auskick too, mate. Like, you know, parents will rock up on the field, or they'll be like, oh, you know, get the ball and whatever, or my kid, and I'm like, mate, how often are you out in the, you know, my son couldn't kick a football for like, you know, for the longest period of time. Yeah. He was fearful of going to Auskick because he knew he would suck at it, right?
Yeah.
So for like 4 months, I'm just like every single day, hey mate, let's go kick the football to the point where he like froths it, right? But we rock up on a day and then a kid doesn't, you know, like it and goes, oh, I don't like football, and they go, take you out, you know, that's not for you, you know, like, you know, and that's like, resilience is the thing, as a buzzword and all that sort of stuff, similar to like mindfulness and all this sort of stuff, buzzwords, but, you know, they've been demonstrated for like, the resilience that, you know, our parents, when they came over here, like all that sort of stuff. And, you know, we sometimes just like, we want to protect those kids, but we hurt them as well, like in terms of that actions.
Yeah. And I can see like we're very similar. I can tell with the way we sort of handle things. Like I'm very patient with my daughter. I like to explain things and talk things through with her. But obviously, I snap sometimes. I'm not a perfect dad.
I've seen it.
and as you just said before, like you reflect upon what you've just done and realize, fuck, maybe I could have handled this better. But you can then learn and grow yourself. And then I would like to teach my daughter, and do teach my daughter, I guess, traits being, you know, well, it's hard now. She's only 5, but want to teach her to be stoic and strong. But also
you
vulnerable.
Want to teach her to be a toxic masculine?
Yeah, toxic masculine, but also vulnerable. Like teach her all those sorts of attributes. But yeah, the resilience pathway and these sorts of things are important.
But again, when you snap, you can use that as a teaching lesson.
Yes.
Yes.
Right? Like, you know, I say this, it's like, you know, if your son's, you know, you're about to rush out to work, you're flipping out and you're freaking out, and you're not in a good place, what's going to happen? Your kids are just going to feed off that and go, like I'm freaking out, right? Like, and my daughter, same deal. Like she could be there, and then next thing you know, she's in an environment, she's scared, and then she gets to school, and I'm like, see, darling, I got to go, you know. And usually I give it, and then she like starts crying, and you go, what's wrong? It's the same thing that we've done every day, but you know, her environments had changed, right? So for me, like, you know, when I flipped out at my kids or whatever, and I'll apologise, I'm like, Dad's stressed, right? And you know what? I didn't handle that well, right? Next time, I'm gonna, like, you know, we're gonna put on some music that we go, I'm gonna be in the car and I scream and like death metal, whatever it may be, right? Yeah. But those kids will learn that, and so they'll pick up that, like, and I say that as well, like, into my wife, I'm like, hey, I understand, you know, like you're tired, you're agitated, you know, things, but just go to a room then, like, or go for a walk. I'll handle the kids for that, like, little moment, but because the kids will then see that as normal behaviour. So like if you're stressed and you lashed out, and so even those moments, I'll say to this to my kids, and sometimes, and you know, you go like, fuck, I fucked up hard. And so then my daughter, and what we love about like our kids, they're like animals, right? Yeah, correct. You know, and so they love you, that like unconditional love, and so, you know, Sully and Finley, like they do that, and I go, hey, Dad's got some pressure on at the moment, you know, not good. But yeah, I'll learn from it, you know, and I think that's the thing. Like, you're not work in progress. Like, like we stuff up every day.
As long as you're not going, your bloody mother.
No, I'll say that. I'll definitely, mate. She could work a few more hours.
Well, my apologies are pretty basic at the moment to Scotty, because she's 5. She doesn't quite get the pressures of life that get to me. But I'll be like, sorry, Daddy shouldn't have yelled, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I think she really does understand that. And I think that's the best way to handle things, and to teach her that we are all imperfect. So. Yeah. And I think that actually raises an interesting thing, because we were talking about the exercise being a benefit. But I was reading about, this is a while ago, so I might not get the stats right, but it's called the exercise and happiness paradox.
Yeah.
Where they're talking about exercise obviously creates this it releases endorphins and lowers cortisol, and it's physically it helps obviously with your mental health. But we're also not doing exercise to feel good. We're doing it to look good. And
which makes you feel good.
Which, yes, but if that's what you're doing it for, to look good, and you look on social media, you see these perfect bodies that are touched up by a thing. And we talk about social media.
Touched up by a filter. Finish that sentence.
That's the paradox. So you're doing the exercise instead of to look, instead of to feel good. You're doing it to look good, and that's the problem at the moment. Exercise has become a vanity thing instead of like a health.
Mate, social media, and I love it, but like social media's given you guys this platform.
Yes, of course,
and that. But the amount of things that I see, which are like sort of, is it? I thought there was music in the background. I was like,
someone's magical horn.
But let's for example, guys that do cold immersion, right, or all that, But I always look at it and go, what's motivated? Like, if no one was taking this real and you weren't going to be featured on this social media clip, are you still going? Like, what are you actually motivated for, right? Yeah. Like, if what are you intrinsically motivated? And it's like, I remember my brother went into rehab, and they actually, so he had an addiction, and they would say to them, so he was like, all right, I'm going to run 50 miles a day. They're like, no. You can't do that, because you're then replacing that addiction with another addiction, right? Or they're like, you can't be in a relationship because you're replacing that with another addiction, or whatever it may be, right? And so, you're right. Like, what is that ulterior motive or that perspective in that sort of sense? Because we understand the value of exercise. It's, a psychologist, she can't prescribe medicine, but it says to her clients or patient, hey, what are you doing as a form of exercise? But when it becomes a detriment for trying to seek out that validation, it becomes dangerous. And unfortunately, social media does that. There's no way, even in the sense that, I obviously promote what I do with our organisation, and there's no, I'm not going to lie, there's a post and I'll spill in my beans and I'll get some likes, I'll get comments, I'm like, that's awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
And then there'll be another post where I've been in this moment and I'm like, this is my motivational Martin Luther King speech here. And then it's got 22 likes and are you fucking serious? I just open up and there was nothing. You don't, but if you're seeking that validation, that's where the issue is, right? And I always say that it's that one message and whatnot, but unfortunately, social media, you see that, and because it's everything now being in that space, mate, mental health and mining. All right, let's every single cat and his dog is we can make money from that because we have to do issues. There's, even with the upcoming referendum, there's going to be there's going to be money on the implications of that. We're going to provide mental health support on a referendum. Right? There's money, mental health, right? And there's that, and it's just monetized, and it's man,
extrinsic motivation.
Yeah, and I always look at that, what are you motivated? But you come back to it, I have the absolute privilege of doing this as a full-time gig, but I drive around in a Nissan Pulsar. My wife drives around in a Kluger, just because of kids. Money was never that motivation. It was the impact and value. Yeah. And when that purpose is great in itself, it's massive, right? I don't want to be driving around in a Range Rover. I mean, as much as that would be nice. Yeah. For someone to go, oh, you do it, you do mental health speaks, and now you make a shitload of money.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It has to be different than that.
And you couldn't have a Range Rover in Kundula. What was your the determining factor for you? Because it's called, we haven't even said, it's called A Stitch in Time, right? Yeah. Your charity, and it focuses on men's mental health, or just all mental health?
Yeah, all mental health.
Was there a factor for you that you went, oh fuck, I need to help people with this? Was it just a passion project? Was it
It started and I think I've been fortunate that way. I launched it back in 2014 whilst I was playing Wildcats, and I tore my calf muscle, so I was just going a little bit stir crazy, and I was man, I got all this pent up energy and passion, and was speaking to the CEO, who was awesome. Was we'll put it into a good use. And then I was thinking about this, and then two massive instances, and it's sort of that aha moment or whatever, but best mate tried to take their own life. brother was diagnosed with a range of mental health conditions. And then in a road trip 3 months later, I literally was coming home from seeing a teammate of mine on the road, and literally a guy smashed into a pylon like right in front of us, and I was in the car ripping out the door trying to like get him, and it was like it was nuts. But in that moment, I was like, and I didn't actually think it was a suicide attempt. Well, obviously it happened, but I was in the car and I was like, I had never seen any, like death, right? So I was just like, got the moment, and then the cop at that time said, "Oh, was there any skid mark? Did you see him braking?" And I was like, "No." And so I was just like, okay. And then like 15 minutes later, we stopped. I was with a mate, Damien Martin at the time, and I went, "Man, he took his own life." And they're like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Didn't brake." Yeah. And so like my mind was like, man, what was going on in their life? You know, like for them to ultimately think, you know what I mean? Like not even in that moment, there was no brake light. In that moment, he was that bad, right? Like there was no hope, you know. And for me, hope is that like
Danny Frawley, same thing.
Yeah, didn't see a foreseeable end to it.
Correct. Like how do they get to that point, right? And so I was like, well, you know, there's been some instances in my life personally that have affected me. And then there's just been, so I thought, you know, being a professional athlete, I disagree with the notion of Charles Barkley was like, you know, we're not role models. If you don't want to be, you don't have to be. But for me, I could have put in good use. And so I was like, I reached out to every organisation that was here in WA. And I was like, I want to be an ambassador. Yeah. Selfishly, I wanted to get educated. Like I was sort of that very naive and I did an undergrad in psychology over in the States, but still not from the mental health normalisation of where it's progressing now. Yeah. And it's just grown, you know, like I first started like, you know, just fundraising money, and then was like, it grew, and then I was starting to get out to remote communities and was really placing an importance on that. And then when I retired in 2019, I sort of segued and was working a couple of jobs, or like full-time jobs. And so it was only like, this year in January where after like we run a gala dinner and financially, and we're doing so much work. And it was just at that point I was like, man, I'm working my full-time job, putting the kids down to sleep. I'm doing presentations at night. On the weekend, I just had no time. And I was like, what do I want to do? And had this opportunity, this job opportunity arose, and my wife's like, what do you want to do? Yeah. And I was like, I want to do this full-time. Yeah. And fortunate enough, we're in a position, and again, like I'm not pulling the piss and taking $10,000 a month or whatnot as a salary. Like my salary is $4,300, and I do other work on the side.
But no one would begrudge you either, because you're hustling. And
not saying and for other those, I'm not saying, hey, my mate is Messiah and like this is the way. But for me, it was like I want to be able to do a great purpose and make it sustainable and bring in other facilitators and just do all this sort of stuff. But I was like, I just want to give it 6 months, and if it falls flat on its face, hey, sweet. At least I could look back and go, I gave it a fair crack. And at least I knew that I was able to be in a position I could impact as many lives as I could in that sort of space. And so
you're sort of ticking off too.
It's doing the hard yarns. Literally, that's exactly what we do. We
mental health and lean into what you love.
And try to figure out how to do it.
I mean, I think you sort of say that. It's like finding your purpose. But I think, you know, you always hear that, and it's like when a job, you know, when something you love, it doesn't become a joy. It really isn't. It is a fucking grind. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, like, of course.
You know, you are, and I'm looking at money coming in, or like, you know, getting contracts and all this, and I'm like, get one. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And my wife's like, how good? Like, you're going to be able to do this for the next 6 months. And I'm like, until that gets signed, I'm not, you know. And then someone might come in, and again, like I've been. It's funny, man, like politics and all that sort of stuff. Like people have put me as leveraged me for their own personal benefit to get funding or for political gain or whatever it might not be. But I always look at that. The reason why I started it was to help the ones that I loved most. Yeah. Now that hasn't changed. Like now it's like, you know, when I get a message from a young kid, and you know, I was in Narrabeen last week, and you know, their parent thanks me and goes, you know, that's, you know, I knew they were struggling, but they just wouldn't open up. You know, now they're going to go to their school counsellor. I'm like, man, how cool is this? Or, you know, someone in the Kimberley, or like a bloke that I've had a message at 2:00 in the night, and randomly, you know, like have woken up to take a piss, check my phone because they're going. There's like, hey mate, just in the morning, do you know who I could speak to? Yeah. I go, there's that hope which that individual didn't have in that car. you have to run with it, right? And I look at it and go, man, there's no validation or value. There's no monetary gain from that. But there's a person that's going to go back to their family at night time, which is what we always want.
What was this? Always goes through my head because I always would like to know how I would react. Like, I know that I've got a mad fear of seeing a car crash or a body all mangled or whatever and having that imprint on me. The decision for you to get out of the car and try help, did you have to think about that? Did you stop? Were you like, I'm about to see something fucked up? What if I can't help? Because that always goes through my head. In my head, I'd love to be the hero. Yeah. But then the flip side of that is if I get there and I can't help and I fuck up, then maybe I'm going to carry that or whatever I see. If there's a kid in the car or something, I just don't want. Yeah,
mate, it was it was a like full shivers now thinking about it. Happened, cars stopped, everyone ran. So Damien Martin, myself, and then there was like people, and so everyone's trying to get in the car. No one could get in. So there's obviously airbags there, guys. He is mangled and he's bleeding, and so what happened was like everyone's sort of like in that moment. I was like, mate, like CPR, like I know, but I'm like, fortunate enough, man, there was a doctor. And so she was like, guys, I need someone, like, is there a plastic bag? Because we're going to attempt. I was like, nah, like, get in there, like, whatever. And they're like, look, no, like, there's blood, we don't know. And she was super calm, like, it was amazing. But she was like, all I could think about was like, how do we get this guy out of the car? And so I actually ripped this door off like the hinges, because then
full Hulk style.
Like, it was not, and like, because during it afterwards, we all like when Damon and I were in this car, and he goes, mate, do you remember what happened? And I was like, nah. And he goes, well, because people were in the car and they couldn't get in, and I was like, I actually like the hinges like had opened them up. Wow. And like then I remember the next day, like my body was like done. And I never slept because I kept, my mate was his sister worked at the Victorian Police. And obviously if it's suicide, they're not going to sensationalise it, so they couldn't disclose it. They even said an accident. So I was like, okay, suicide's happened. And then I said, one, is he alive? And no. And then I was like, and they were like, it was took his own life. So but I think in that moment, like, there was other people. I naturally think in that, if it was just us, I would have, like, don't know what to do. But in terms of what I knew was just like strength and adrenaline, I just was like, fucking rip the door open and like do that sort of stuff. So
I'd be so paranoid if they had a broken neck, if I moved and I fuck something up. As well,
and for like, man, I'm a massive believer things happen for a reason. Like in that sort of sense, like that moment, there was like a doctor, like, to think this is how it happened. Damon and I, so my mate was in Pakenham. And we left. We were like, it was a day off. So he's in Pakenham, and we left to go around, and we were like, should we go grab a beer? And he's like, nah. And I was like, go around, let's have a beer. And he drove around the roundabout 8 times.
Fuck.
So we're just like being a dickhead. Oh, should we do this? And then we started the road. If we just started on the road, we would have missed that car. If we went out a beer, like, we would have, like, one less like circle. You know what I mean?
And put your life path on a different exit.
Right.
Like, and for and not obviously that was a good situation, but obviously for the better for you.
And it's that sort of, and I think
it's weird to think that one death has probably prevented fucking hundreds, if not thousands more from the work that you've done as well.
Oh, that's like, I appreciate the sentiment, but like,
it's a weird, like,
no, absolutely. But I think that's, sometimes there's those moments and you do, like, you spoke about this, and it's where sometimes it wasn't my darkest moments, but I think in those where your biggest growth happens. And I think, there's situations where you've gone, I've shared this, and there's times like you might have gone, maybe in 6 months no one even says anything. But naturally someone goes, and I appreciate those guys sharing that conversation, and I'm going to make a change, or it resonates. I do that. I think that's the value in that as well.
I think also, like, I wouldn't be able to label or name a tool other than I can't keep things in. I need to get it out with whoever I trust. What is, like, if you've been in the industry, what's your number one recommend that when you say talk to someone, who is a someone, and is that the number one move, or is it like, look inside yourself first? What do you? What's a toolkit for someone?
I think you can never, in an understanding. For me, my biggest thing, and I think I'm going to be a bit different, especially in this space, is go, one, if you understand you're at that crisis or point where you're like, man, I'm struggling, I need help, then go see that expert. And that for me is the psychologist. And it might not be the right psychologist, and understand there's massive gaps in the community. Like, I want to see a psychologist, well, I can't pay. Okay, cool. But you know what I mean? Like for me, I think because of it's not a regulated sector, it's not like on TikTok, if you give financial advice, people called up because they're like, no, that's wrong. You're ruining people's lives. Yeah. But you could go on Instagram and say whatever you want about mental health. There's no regulation. Someone could go, oh, it's completely false. You know what I mean? There might be a guy like we obviously know, and you're saying cortisol and endorphins and all that. Like, absolutely. And there's like true data. Yeah. But someone could go, fuck, that crystal changed my life. And someone goes, I agree. I'm going to change it. Yeah. Right. You know what I mean? And so, but we diminish the value in some people that have like spent years of education and knowledge and research to doing that. So for me, I go, like if you actually, because that's a really good point, at some point if you go, hey, I need some support, what can I do? And some person might just go, I'll see that psych, and they provide some real basic guidance like, hey, do some exercise. Hey, you got 4 hours sleep, you're taking drugs. Like, you have to just change your life, right? But so there's that. In the preventative education, I always say it's like going, hey, there's a self-care toolkit, right? Just like a mechanic has this shit. Just the same way I would have vitamins every day playing basketball. Like, this is what I need to do to ensure that I would be the best basketball player, not the best basketball team out skills-wise. For me, gratitude, which can be done, and we would speak about that. But for me, that's really massive because it's for me, it's the easiest thing that you can do. Yeah. Like I'm sitting in the car and I'm like, man, I just got told I'm not getting this grant. All right, fuck, I feel shit. Yeah. What am I grateful for? Like I'm like, fuck, I had a quality chat with these two awesome blokes, right? Yeah. Like, and then thinking of how far that's going, right? Like, so there's that, the exercise. For mindfulness, for me, is being present. Like, so, mindfulness, I just think's been commercialized. Psychologists, as much as I just pump their tires up, they're like, how do we make money? Sick, let's make a word. And mindfulness has been practiced for generations. Mindfulness is when our young daughter is at the shopping center and she's having an absolute tantrum, and you're like, hey, have a deep breath. And it's me shooting free throws and shitting my pants and thinking, hey, I'm going to take 2 deep breaths and have a really positive word, right? Yeah. It's staying present, but it can be commercialized, right? Yeah. So, what does that look like for me, and then the other side is finding out what my why was, for me, that is the whole big picture, when I look at that. And why I say that, it comes back to that habits, and I go like, what do I value most in life? And generally when we go that, it's going to be the ones you love the most. Yeah. Some people might be intrinsically motivated by motivation and by money and whatnot. But I always go, no, it's like my family, right? Yeah. And it can be mates for others and could be used to it, whatever it may be, right? And so I go, well, am I being the best version of myself for them? And if I naturally go, yeah, I am. Okay, well, cool. Like, I'm in a good place then. And if I'm not, then why not? Because if you value them the most, then what I mean by that, am I being the best husband or am I being the best dad? And that's why I sort of retired in a way. It was like, when I got asked that, are you being the best version of yourself? I'm like, no, I'm not. Well, why not?
You're fairly young to retire, right?
Yeah, I was 30 years old. Yeah, I was still playing well. One, I couldn't handle the pressure, and basketball became something that I wasn't enjoying because I was always seeking validation from others. I put steps in place, but I became to a point where I was, I couldn't do that.
Like, as a basketball, you can't do more than 2 steps.
So for me, like the guy on Twitter saying you're shit, I was like, I want to headbutt you, but I can't. So, but anyway, like I put those things, but so saying, okay, cool. And then for me, it's like, well, how do you be the best husband and how do you be the best father? So, making sure that my job equated to that, making sure that my routine in place. And I always say that, we're habitual. And when people say, I don't have time to do this stuff for mental health, I'm like, bullshit. Exercise, it can be 30 minutes. It could be 10 minutes, reading a book, colouring in. That shit's done when you wake up in the morning or when you go to sleep. Right? Yeah. Like being the best version of yourself is done when you wake up and before you go to bed. Like when you go to bed and like someone just does that mindful TikTok scrolling and you're like, man, you could have been in bed for 45 minutes. Now you're tired.
Yeah,
right?
That's me, man.
You know what I mean? But, and so, or wake up in the morning. I'm like, man, but I wake up and you're like, fuck, I could have done that. Like I could have done exercise. So I think that.
And if you're doing that now, put it down, take a deep breath.
But like if someone's even going like, okay, and this is the thing, like it can be, what makes you, like if you need more happiness, like you go, I know the Hard Yarns lads like provide joy in my life, so I'm going to listen to a podcast on the way to work.
Yeah.
Because in that moment I can be there and I'm going to be joyful when I get to work and in that sort of sense. Like that, like listen, like for me, that's always like, even sometimes I'm in the car, drove to Narrabeen like 3.5 hours and I'm like, man, this is shit. Yeah. Right? But I'm like there and my mind consistently is going like 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Sure.
It's Delby.
I'm like this ADHD, like I'm, and so I'm just going rocket. So I need to be like, oh, I'm put in place. I'm like listening to all these podcasts. I won't listen to these ones, and I'm listening to Trevor Gleeson and Hard Yarns, and like all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, that was a fun effort.
But you know what I mean? So like in that moment, instead of being like 3 hours later, and then I've got this workshop, I'm like, oh, I should have been doing some scope for it. Or I've got a contract here that I need to look at. You can put steps in place. So I know that's like a big, but I think it's all those things.
And with the finding the why, I think that for me, some of the behaviors I've had, you need a professional or an outside force to maybe suggest some things, because if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. If you can't figure out your own why, like that's a higher skill, I think. You might disagree. It's a Greg higher skill. It's a high level skill because like something as simple as, I was speaking to Chelsea, who's been a past guest, and she's a counsellor, talking about overeating. And I never knew really why I did it. And when I started to explain it, I was like, I don't want to waste like the food. Like growing up as an Italian, my mum was really poor. We had to really value that food. So then for my whole life, that's ingrained in me, don't waste the food. And she just flipped my why. She goes, well, you're doing it because you don't want to waste the food. You value that. You value the money. You don't want to get rid of it. But if it goes in your stomach or if it goes in the bin, it's both wasted, because you're already full and it's going to be wasted on you as fat or it's going to be wasted in the ground. She's like, no matter what, and just that little flip in the switch has really helped me not overeat as much as I used. Like every now and again I'll do it because it tastes fucking good. Like the mind site I was on, oh my God.
You did well though, to be fair. You sent me pictures and you saying, no, I just had the one ice cream.
Food was incredible. But like, just understanding that why, I would have never have got to that ever on my own.
And absolutely right. And I think that's part of it. And there's, Simon Sinek does the one and TED Talk, the why. And, we know what we're doing, we know how we're doing it. The why is always the toughest one, and I think it streams back to being the purpose. Like marketing sense, and I think the best way I can say it, and I'll say, a postal company. I won't say Australia Post because they're shit, right? I'll say a postal company that's like Sendle, right? Now, people that rock up every day getting paid $32 or whatever it might be are like, man, this is a shit job. So like, let's change the purpose and go like, in their mind, hey, that package that you might be sending and needs to be sent on time is life-saving equipment for someone that's getting cancer treatment. It is this 6-year-old's kit, like toy, that's going to be his first birthday present, right? Like it's...
You don't know what's
bullets,
in there.
I don't know, right? But
a last letter for your,
correct, right? Like streaming. Now, in their mind, they might go, that's bullshit. But if that's what they're thinking about, their purpose, like someone saying, I want to get a raise. I want to get that's a goal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can't control that. It's like, how many people do we know? Like you could be in the best job, like you were just brought up as a high school teacher, right? Years and years, it took you 6 years to get that. Like you could have been there, left and gone like, I never got that job that I wanted, but you can't control that. Yeah. Like someone comes in and goes, oh, well, more experience. Oh, there's natural bias. Yeah. No, we think Delby's got a tiny penis. We don't want him to do that.
That's just fact.
You know what I mean? Like, so like, again, it's like, putting that purpose around it. So like, I always, and that's for me, it's like, I look at it with the Stitch in Time and what we do. I don't look at the goal and the purpose being like, oh, we need to get $200,000 because I can't control that.
Yeah.
So my purpose is like, okay, I want to impact lives. How do I do that? Okay, well, I can help them find their purpose. Yeah. Or I can help them become better educated in mental health knowledge. Yeah. And then so for me, that's not this undefined thing. And, I think that's like people need to do that. Like they need to go like, right. Like I always ask that, like, and that's tough because I can understand, like we're fortunate, right? So you've gone, jumped out of the plane and went, I'm going to do this. Yeah. Absolutely. Right. And, and you've had success, and what do we define by success? Because let's say in 3 or 4 years, and you go, well, I'm not doing it anymore. Was it successful? But I'm like, hey, for the last 6 months or whatever time, I look at back. If I work, in August, because we've funding, the time I've spent with my kids, no one can ever take away.
Yeah.
Like that for me is that measure of success, and that was my purpose shifted, right?
Yeah, that's wicked.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Good,
Like I look at it and went, man, like the time that I've been able to drop off my son and my daughter and allow my wife to go back. Like for me, do I have this life? Am I going to Nobu and I'm driving right? Nah, but the thing that I've got with my kids, man, like immeasurable, right? Like, and I think when it's about people, like when your why is about people, that's the greatest thing that you can do.
100%.
Right? Like, and that's the thing I always, like that empathy and all that sort of stuff. Like often we talk, but I think the best ability we have as individuals is listening and not judging.
100%.
That's the hardest thing to do as well, though, because your ego kicks in.
Absolutely.
So much.
Yeah. And it's a lot easier to solve someone else's problem than your own.
It's so true. It's same as jokes. If someone comes up with a premise, you can give them wicked jokes. But on your own premise, you're like, fuck. And like, I love helping people with their problems. I really enjoy it. Like, if my friend comes to me, I got this. I'm like, oh, try this, and this. But when it's yourself, you're like,
because it's hard. Because you know it's going to take a process. Yeah, like you're like, man, I'm going to have to do it, and it's hard work. Like it's not. And because if it was an easy problem, you just do it straight away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I've got to do my tax, but I know that's going to take a long.
The hardest thing is when you know
fucking tax.
when you know exactly how they can help themselves, but that you tell them, but until they go, I've got to do this.
But the other thing as well, when you're talking that, everyone rather help themselves because it makes them feel good.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like no one at Christmas time wraps up 50 presents as much as it'd be sick and then unwraps them and goes, sick, Bluetooth speakers, iPad Pro, a new mic, right? Like, man, like my son like now opens up presents and like, Avengers, and I'm like, how cool is this? You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. Like you'd rather that boost.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
like
so strange. Like some people might be intrinsically motivated by making money. It does make them happy, but I mean, I love making cash, but
motivated's okay. But
when you say that, I bought my family dinner the other night, and it was fucking expensive, but it made me feel like really good, man.
But like, so example of that, right? Jermaine Bill.
Threw his medal away? No,
that was James Ennis. No, Jermaine Bill, and he was like the selfish guy, and we were speaking and trying to find out his motivation, and he was like, it's money. And I'm like, no, it's not money, mate. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, why do you want money? He goes, because I want to make sure my family's looked after.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's your motivation.
Yeah.
You want the biggest contract and all that because you want to make them, but at the end of the day, it's for them. Like you just said you want your mum to be in a better situation. You want your children and your wife to be in a better position. That's your motivation. Like, you want to. Everyone's motivated by money. Like,
of course,
absolutely it is. Like, if someone goes like, here's like I was joking around. I'm the ambassador for a jerky company, and someone goes, Sportsbet gave you $1 million. What do you do? I was like, I'll take it, mate. Like, as much as I think sports gambling is anything, but I'll change the whole messaging like around that. Like, absolutely. But you know what I mean? This is the thing, finding that greater purpose and going, I just need that more money. Absolutely. What was it? Oh, it was my and he was like, okay, that makes sense. I'm like, it's not about you, brother. It's about the other ones that you love.
How do you get past the people that go, I don't have motivation. I don't have a purpose.
But I think, look, man, I think, I always say this, my brother and when he was going through all the issues, and I say this, at some point, some people need to hit rock bottom. Yeah. Whatever that looks like. Being in jail, at some point, being homeless. Yeah. Because sometimes people keep giving them like the answer or the solution, and they never actually get fixed by it, right? And I go, at the end of the day, you still are responsible, as we brought up those kids at Banksy Hill, right? Like are responsible with your actions. Yeah. Like you could give them the perfect formula and they go, don't want to do it. And you're like, all right, man. Yeah. And that's what even from a mental health perspective, I go up there and I go, you can provide all these like solutions, and someone goes, nah, and I go, mate, you got an excuse. You know what I mean? Like, just trust me, like do this, like go out, have a chance. Like, if we're going to be hesitant and apprehensive and whatnot, like, what's the fear? If you said, I tried it, okay, awesome, sweet.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. There's no doubt, I think, like that motivation, but I still go back to those people, and like if someone was severely overweight, and they were like, I want to make a change, and they're like, well, I'm not motivated. I go, so what do you value? I value food, okay, but what is that? If they're why? But I think if they can figure out what their purpose and dig a little bit deeper and find it, and whatever it may be, and go, if you truly value that, brother, or whatever it may be, then like these are the actions. And I think, but it takes time. Like, there's no.
And I think, like, I guess those sorts of stresses, like financial stress, do contribute to a lot of people's anger. But I try to like view people's anger differently. Yep. So even that guy who's angry at you for on the road, cuts you off in traffic, they're still coming from a place of love when they're yelling, because they're trying to get home because they've worked a long day and they want to get home to their kids, or they're running late for work and they need to get to work on time so they can earn money, so they can, do this. So it's always connections that they're always seeking. And I think it's Johan Hari wrote that book, Lost Connections, and that ended up being a driving factor behind people turning to drugs and alcohol and addiction because of their mental health struggles. And
it's also with the COVID things, the connection, people just jumped in and fucking formed a group because they felt accepted in.
Yeah, and also the isolation of people was a big contribution to that. So obviously we can see that, the connection is probably the big thing, and that's where it comes back to what you were saying before, is like, I've lent into this, and my idea of success is I've already won. Yeah. I've already won because I get to pick up my daughter, and I've said this on the podcast before, I get to pick up my daughter from school and drop her off and all this extra time, and at the end of the day, if when I'm 40, I go back to fucking sheet metal, I don't give a fuck. I've had the best 6, 7, 8 years with Delby, talking shit, having fun, meeting people, talking with people like yourself. And who gives a fuck? I've already won, and I'll live within my means to get that, as long as I get the connections and the people around me. And that's what makes me happy.
That's the gratitude coming back.
And that I don't need it, but I do enjoy it, and it's part of it. That's my why, is connections with people around me. And
I love it, and I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm sure everyone listening appreciates the show. For me, we're wired to be connected in that sort of sense. We are like, we're pack animals in that sort of sense. Like, anyone can say COVID, and your introverts are like, oh fuck yeah, I get a little bit of time, but you just wouldn't. Like, we know the data that's coming out in Victoria and all that, like the mental health concerns that come from that, and people that you were speaking to, like, man, it was the fucking worst thing in the world, like not being connected, and more so from all that, like, connected is like, Zoom calls and whatnot, but just even like that human affection, like, you know what I mean? Like, giving, there's nothing better than like giving your mate a hug and, all that sort of stuff. And for me, like, that's an environment, like road rage, like I laugh because they're like someone, and I'm like, why are you compelled to? Why are you so compelled to be so angry? But then I go, it could be like this environment, and I'm not like, you can't be judgmental. And I say that like for some, like something could have just happened, mate. Like on the way there, they've received some really shit news. They've just been fired or whatnot. Now that could be, they could just be like a complete wanker. But I don't do that for that sense, and I think. We are so quick to judge, and that's like that negative bias as well. But that human connection is so vital, and it's like the benefit of COVID. Not benefit of COVID, but like, and social media and side. Fuck, it's amazing when something happens and how people can come together. Yeah. And then in hindsight, you go like, I mean, we come together like COVID. We're like, let's all support each other, and then we're like. And a reflection, and hindsight, we go like, people are fuckheads and rah, and you're saying all this, and we're judgmental. Yeah. Black Lives Matter. Everyone comes together for a set, and then we go, was it really like that sort of sense? And then there's other stuff, right? Like the bushfires. People come together, right? And we like fundraise, and in these darkest moments, people come together for like one purpose. Yeah. You know what I mean? But then we're like, after that, we're like, nah.
Go do your own thing.
Yeah, and you're done. Like, seriously, we're like, collaboration is like this word that gets like so thrown around, and I'm like, man, like people like, I want to collaborate, and like, no, you don't. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
you want to benefit yourself. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Right. Like, we
so don't accept our invite to collaborate on Instagram.
No, but like in that sense, right? Like, so, like, and you see this genuine, and people are so like, even as soon as like there's like growth, right? Which is like, you can see there's genuine authenticity in this say brand, but with you guys, right? Like it stays grassroots. Like you could have gone bigger than Ben-Hur, or like say obviously you've done your stuff with Buddha, what's that?
Green Reapers,
right. Like you'd be like, nah, fuck those guys. Like, and as much as that works together and all that sort of stuff, but as soon as some people then get success, they're like, no.
We are bringing each other up.
Separate. And I think that's often we look at that, like even from the mental health. So I always say this: people go like, "What's your I ask it like, what's your 10-year plan?" And I was like, "Not in this job." And I go, what do you mean? I go, mate. If I realistically, I know it's impossible. Yeah. But if I'm in this job, I'm literally not looking at it. I don't want it to be sustainable. I want lives to be lost to suicide to be zero. Now I know that's not going to happen, but that's what I'm trying to aim for, right? Yeah. Like it shouldn't be going, well, how do I make this organisation sustainable in 10 years' time? Like it will shift. I hate the word pivot, but all that sort of stuff, right? But I think that's where that like we, as humans, like in moments, we can come together and it's amazing. You're like, man, how cool is this, right? I guarantee you, right? Like if and I would hope so. I know this is the case, but if you were like, man, I'm struggling, you got one mate that's going to pick you up, but you got all listeners and people that would reach out to you, right? Like, and sometimes that's what people don't know how loved they are. Yeah, like they look at it but they see love in one. They see their girlfriend, or their boyfriend. Or whatever, non-binary or whatever, but whatever it may be, right? They see that, but then they don't realise there's a lot of other love out there. Like I tell guys all the time, hey, I can love you, mate. And or even I've done it at keynotes. I love every single person in this room, and they're like, there's a guy like, oh, sick, go. You know what I mean? Like, but I think that's all. Yeah, you have to share that.
Well, love's the answer, and we found that with Interstellar as well.
Yes, love was the answer.
The whole gratitude thing, it just reminded me of something. Maybe this has helped why we're vulnerable. From when I was like 10, when we'd sit down together, me, mum, and my brothers, and we'd have to go around the table and do 2 things that we were grateful for.
I love that
day. So just name 2 really things. Good. No, I still do it.
Yeah,
always.
Mate, that's cool. That's a nice practice.
It's my biggest shift, and why I say that. I share this experience when I went up to the Kimberley, and it's tough to share. Was arranging a trip up there, and there was this like. Had read the newspaper, and there was like this tiny section, 9-year-old girl took her own life. Fucking smashed me like still. I'm like, man.
Especially at 9 to think that there's no...
Yeah. So got up there and was like, this whole experience. And when I got up to Luma, I was done. Like I was sort of like in terms of energy, like I was zapped, like I'm sure like if you're... After you're like coming from Calgary, like, get me home, right? So I was just like, man, I had a good coffee.
I was actually pumped for today, but at the end of today, it's going to be like,
but like I had I'm a coffee snob, so Nescafe blends, like done, like all this sort of stuff, like no phone reception. It wasn't connected to people that I loved, like all this sort of stuff, and it's hot. But anyway, like I was at recess, and then that moment, I'm like looking, and there's like pure joy and jubilation amongst all these kids' faces. Yeah, like they were just unbelievably happy, and I'm like, man, they were going through this really shit time. Like they just lost a peer. Yeah, right. Like they didn't understand the magnitude of it all, but I was like, why are they so joyful? Yeah, there was like that connection to nature, connection to spirituality. Happy that I don't know who I am. They will never even be to Perth. Yeah. Like they literally were googling me. Like I could have said anything. Like could have said, maybe not Michael Joe, I'm Luke Longley, right? They would have believed, all this sort of stuff. And as you go digging a little bit deeper, and I was speaking to a mentor of mine and a psychologist, and that concept of gratitude, and it's like rewiring your brain and focusing on that. And it's huge. Like it's shifting that, because we just have that negative bias, like that fear or flight response, and we want to protect ourselves. That amygdala, can get hijacked and all that sort of stuff. Like, for me, gratitude is the one thing vital. I say that to we sit down at a dinner table every night, and I say to my son, hey, what are you grateful for? He goes, I don't know what. I thought, what are you happy about? Yeah. What was the best thing that happened to you today? Yeah. And in that moment as well, when you've Like I might be preparing stuff for the gala dinner, right? Or like I'm about to write an email to the people or whatever, or preparing a speech, and I'm like tired to sit down. I'm like, that's my moment with those kids. Give them attention.
Yeah.
You know, like I think that's
present.
the most valuable thing I've learned is give your kids attention. You know, even if you're not in that moment, I'm like, dad, and you're like flat. He's just like, hey, I'll be with you in 2 minutes.
Yes.
And then I'll be with you. Because you don't want to be like, ignore them, and then they see that as acceptable.
Yeah.
You know, so, but I asked him, I remember for ages, my son would be like, oh, I'm super happy about dinosaurs. Like, open the door.
Yeah.
There is no T-Rex, Adominus Rex, Stegosaurus. What are you on about? But for him, like, it was just that moment for that family. And I think like that, it's huge. Like it has that benefits, you know, like I've got it on my phone, you know, who are you grateful for? What do you got? Like, and there's moments. And for me, that's where it comes down to, like, you want to tell people and you say, are you okay?
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, that's such a fucking thing, a hard thing to ask. And I was up to Port Hedland last year, you know, preparing for a speech. There was 2 blokes walked into the kitchen and they're like, and I'm like, going, the guy's like, oh, it's Are You Okay Day? And he's like, yeah, cupcakes, you know, like, this is awesome. And the guy goes, how you doing? He goes, shit, absolute shit. And I was like, oh, this is sick. You know, this is going to be really cool. Nothing was said. Like, they just walked off.
It wasn't Andrew Wolf, was it?
I'm not really prepared for this.
That's what Wolf says. It's like, people go, I'm not prepared for this. Have a cup of tea and a lie down.
And so he was just like, and then, but in that sense, right, it's like, you know, we did it with the Wildcats, and, you know, other moments like, what are you grateful for? You know, like, and when things are humming, when you're confident, like when life is good, you'll find happiness in the most simplest of things. And like, it was no peak hour traffic, good coffee, sun was shining, got to see your face. My son gave me a hug on the way out.
Yeah.
When things are shit house, you'll struggle to find gratitude in anything.
Yeah.
You'll find negatives in the best of things. You want lotto? Yeah, but I can't pay my mortgage. I'm going to run out of money, you know, like good coffee. Yeah, but it costs $7.80. Like, you know what I mean? And so for me, that's where you can, like, as a human, like, you value people. Like, if you said to me, I'm fucking feeling shit, or like, hey, let's grab a beer, coffee, whatever, let's have it, like, let's talk about it, right? But it's rare. Like, you know, like, you guys do it. But more than likely not. And I think that's like changing the whole messaging and implementing things like that you can do as a family, as a business, as podcast, you know, whatever it may be, to sort of normalize that sort of behavior.
And also, like anything, like, I think it's important. And then I've had situations where, like, they're almost sucking the energy out of you. That's where I'm like, well, I'm not okay now. I need you to go to speak to somebody and sort it out professionally. Because you get drained and you do what you can. For sure.
Because there is a I see, and that side, I've seen that side from friends myself, and what happened to you, Delby. And I think, like, sometimes just knowing you could call a friend and tell them, I knew that. I remember my experience on Christmas Eve 2 years ago. It's the first time we're just going through our separation, and I had to drop my daughter off and not spend Christmas Eve with her. And I was a fucking sobbing, disgusting mess. And I knew, just call someone. And the thing that went through my head was, I don't want to burden someone's lovely family up like Christmas Eve. Like, I don't want to fuck that up and make them worry about me. I knew it was going to be temporary. It was going to pass. So I was just like, I won't burden anyone with my.
But if you did call, no one would think that.
Exactly. And I that's how I thought. And so fully aware of the fact that I should just call someone, and I still didn't. So I can understand how people who don't even realize just how much it helps, because I remember the next time I really was struggling was recently with my mum going through some issues, and I was told, you know, potentially never going to speak to her again. And I really struggled for 2 minutes. It was fucking 1 o'clock in the morning, and I said this, I think, 2 weeks ago on the podcast. I called one of my best mates who just happened to be in Mexico. The time difference, I didn't feel like I was bothering him. And spoke to him for 2 minutes, and I felt completely fine again. And just by speaking, he's probably one of the better guys, Teddy, who I could have spoken to. He's very calm and logical about things and talks you through things. I'm sure you could call people who just don't know what the fuck they're doing. But he was able to just talk me through a few things, calm me down a little bit, and then I was like able to breathe and felt fine. So actually, just by calling someone, just temporarily sorted it. If I had ongoing issues or whatever, I would definitely recommend going seeking some professional help. But
and that's what I think it's getting that plan. And I want to go back, like you said, sobbing, disgusting mess.
Yeah.
I look at it and go,
Yeah.
it's a sobbing, beautiful mess.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I go, man, like as a dad, and I can understand, and I don't understand, but I can look at that and go, man,
Oh, yeah.
like,
Guys.
absolutely. And I go, it's beautiful. Like it shows that you care. You know what I mean? Like imagine if you were like sick beers with the boys, that'd be like, hey, mate, you know that like for I look and I go, man, as a dad, that's like the greatest measure. You know what I mean? Like that kids love. It's tough, but it's developing that plan. Like naturally from a young age, we all place that importance from a physical health standpoint. Like my son does.
Yeah.
Falls from a tree, runs down. Hey, Dad, gotta get Band-Aid for my legs, right? Like I'm bleeding. All right, no worries. Avengers, put them on.
Yeah.
I got Dad, we got to call the ambulance.
Yeah.
Why? Oh, because I got to live.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, man, it's okay. Like you're fine. But from a young age, he's already embedded. Like you've got to place this importance in your physical health. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and we hear that all the time. Like it's easier because you can't sit. You know, like we can broken arm, you can recognise it, and all those sorts of things. Yeah. But I think no one like if someone was, I would hope, but on the middle of the road, like you'd. Hey, you're right, like what's going on here and whatnot. But just because you can't see it doesn't mean you don't place importance. Diabetes, heart condition, people can't see it. They still place importance. Why? Fundamentally, they want to live as long as they possibly can. Yeah. What I'm trying to say that is though, everyone still even has that base knowledge. Like even from a young age, like my son, like maybe if he does a broken arm, I'm not going to fix it. But I'm like, all right, I know what I got to sort of do. Hey, raise it up a little bit, provide a little bit of support and take him. Yeah. So it's even understanding that like, well, like someone that came to me, like, what would I do? Yeah. Right? Like in your normal job, if you didn't know what to do, you'd get the base knowledge. You don't just sit there and pretend and like go, oh, I'm going to go. And so it's even just getting that base knowledge, like, and understanding that, like, my job's not to fix you. Yeah. Like my job may be, if I'm a psychologist, it might be a bit like our job as a human is to fucking oath. Yeah. It is though. It is triaging, like not to be like, man, like I'm going to try, because if I don't have the answers or believe, skills correct. Like it's just to be like, hey, I value this, right? Like I'm going to help you get support though. Yeah. But like use me as well. Like I'll take you to GP to go get you on that mental health plan. Hey, call this number, whether that's a Beyond Blue or a Lifeline or the suicide callback service, or reach out. Like I'll stay here with you to make the phone call. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like to be there in that point, and don't go like, I value that. Thank you for sharing. Bye. See you later. Like I'll catch it. I'll reach out to you next week. Right. Yeah. And then it's like, no. I'll value it and I'll wait for you. And even going, hey, if it doesn't work, sweet. Like let's try something new or what, and, and that might be as simple as like, or what do you need? Hey, I just need, or hey, do you want to start going to the gym together so we sort of work out? Yeah. Do you want me to just text you? I like to see how you're doing. Like, again, will you find like there's mental health's complex. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like there's a guy that I talk to quite a bit who goes through some shit, and that's like, what do you need right now? And he goes, mate, just if you can just come catch up with me and for a coffee, and I just want to talk to someone that I'm not like close to. Yeah. I don't know, like. What do you mean I'm not close? Like you've shared a lot of things. I'm like, no, like that's fine. Just I'll hold space. Like, and it's more because he knows I'm not coming and being like, you shouldn't do that, mate. You need to do this. I'm like, hey, awesome. Like, you know what I mean? We sort of go through it. So.
I've always, anytime someone's got issues, I don't know if this is a skill or a strategy anyone uses. I just go, do you want me to listen or do you want me to help? Yeah. And then first, if it's listen, I have to hold my tongue. Absolutely. But, usually it's with a girl, do you want me to listen or do you want me to help? Because they'll be like, I just want you to fucking listen. Mate, I don't need your help.
Absolutely. Like, same with the wife as well. Yeah. And that's the thing, because there's times, I'm the same as well. Like, and I'm like, I didn't want you to give me an answer. I wanted you to tell me I'm right. Like, you know what I mean? Or you just like vent and you're like, man, and then you're like, get it out. So it's like the same. It's like in the car when you just like scream, you're like, oh, feel good. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you just need to do that. Talking about Wolfie. Yeah.
Oh no.
No, great. A little segue. Yeah. I was in the audition with him for Survivor.
Oh, no way.
And I thought it was a fucking stitch up. I thought he was planted as a seed. Like I thought he was a paid actor. He was the most hectic. Oh, so even that setting,
I'm clipping this up and I'm tagging you.
Tell us about it.
So I like rock up first, and I'm like, because I've never done anything like this. They had like, and it were like, can you apply? I'm like, yeah. And that's the only show I wanted to be. If I was single, absolutely like, yeah. But I was like, yeah, go on Survivor. Don't want to look like a complete bell end, whatever. Yeah. So anyway, like, I like have the, like we rock up and they're like full proper. It's like, you know, there's no phones, no interaction. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. He rocks up. He's 15 minutes late. And he's like, hey, guys, what's obviously like so loud. And he's like, is this Survivor? And everyone's like, don't want to say a word because they don't know if it's part of the game yet. And he's like, and then he's like going, he's filling in, he's talking. And then someone's like, you're not allowed to talk. And he's like, yeah, all right. And he's like talking. And he's like looking at me. He's like, they're not serious, but it's loud. It's fucking hilarious. And then he's like on his phone, and then he's like takes a phone call. How long do you reckon this would be? And then like they're like, I was like, has to be. Like, we go in this room.
Maybe it was.
No, I hit him.
He was, because remember, we've got a podcast about him talking about what he would do on Survivor. So
that's why I saw him afterwards.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What it was, I think it was just prior COVID. It was like a long time, but it was hilarious. So then we get in the room. They literally separate the like into two tribes.
Yeah.
And it was actually like very weird because it was a game. As soon as they were like doors closed, like game's on, and you're like, "What do you mean the game?" And so like everyone introduced yourself, and like and there's like people with like this guy wore like colourful socks, and he's like sharing a story.
It's like Big Brother auditions. Everyone's trying to be this person that they're not.
It was hilarious. Like this lady
annoying.
like goes, and then she's like looking at them and tries to like give people shit, and then like she's like, "I wouldn't do it," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? This we're not actually in the game." Like, and then like this guy literally like as she's talking, takes forever.
Yeah.
Stands in front of her and is like, "All right, you've had your moment." And then like, so I was like, "Oh, he's going to be like the bully of the." And I was like, "This really happened?" Like, and they have this competition, and he's just erratic. Yeah. Like he's just like yelling.
Well, that doesn't sound like Wolfie.
Oh no, Wolfie is just like
Okay.
And so then they had to do. I think he actually got voted off. Like, so then he had to choose like tribe leaders, and I was like, nah, choose him because he's like an absolute shit show. And but then it was hilarious because then I was like, I'm going to play the game. I'm like, and when they voted, I was just like, because they were like, all right, introduce yourself, and I was like, made up a story. I was like, they're going to know I'm a Perth Wildcats player. So I was like, yeah, I'm a youth counsellor for like Red Cross or something, can't remember. And then someone's like, no, you're not. And, and they're like, oh, you're playing the game. And I was like, yeah, okay, guys. Anyway, but we did this, and so then you actually had to vote people off. Yeah. And I remembered saying like to the like this chick, I go, oh, you know, he tried to get you voted off, like Wolfie. And she's like, what? And he's like, yeah, during the competition, he like said to me, hey, vote her off. Like, and then like, so they fully like, she's like, hey, he just said.
So
and
you fucked Wolfie over?
Like, and then Wolfie's like laughing. No, he loved it. He's like, yeah, I did. What are you going to do about it? And I was like me and him were just like laughing back and forward. And then I was like, so it was just, and then like you get voted, like you're voted off, and then it's just done. They're like, see you later. We'll call you tomorrow. And I was just like, what just happened? And then anyway, they called back. I had like a second interview, and I was like, I need to find out because that surely was a setup. Yeah. And then when he was on the show, I like hit him up, and I'm like, brother, like please tell me you were a plan, like you were, you know, orchestrating. He's like, nah,
that's my personality.
And it was hilarious too because when he was like, I would have been like. Yeah,
killing. He goes, I would have killed someone. That's the game.
Yeah, I would have been like my dick out, and like I was like, he would have been. He should have been on the show because they would have not been able to control him.
Fuck. He might have needed you to go with him for the mental health counselling.
That's funny.
Yeah. Oh fuck. Well, that's a great little end story to the episode. Mate, that was fucking incredible, actually. That was really good. Cathartic. We haven't had
I'm grateful. Thank you for coming in. I have gratitude.
We haven't had
I've been pissed off.
a bit of a mental hehealth chat for a while, so it's really good. So do you want to plug Stitch in Time and all that, I guess?
Yeah, no. I'm talking about collaborate. No, yeah. So, Stitch in Time. Mate, we run workshops all in schools, sporting clubs, organisations all over WA. So, it's that preventative and education piece. So what we try and do is, you know, team of facilitators who are all current and elite athletes. So someone was actually on your show before, Blair Evans is one of our facilitators. And psychologists come through and ratify what we do. So you've got your evidence-based approach, but you've got lived experience combined with that education. So, you know, I was fortunate enough to be in a couple of studies, but, you know, if you've got a psychologist and you've got a role model, they listen to the role model. You know, like if Nick Natanui, maybe not everyone likes him anymore, but if he walks into a room and there's a psych with 50 years of experience, they're listening to Nick Nat. You know what I mean? They're not listening. So, you know, it's using a combination of that. You know what I mean? So it's like ingraining him, not diminishing what they have, the psychologists, and they're placing that importance. I think that's what makes us really special. We have that psych on our team that an incident might happen and we might go, hey, like we've got our psychs that can provide that support. So, yeah, massive. You know, as I said, so if anyone wants to do it in a sporting club or they're an educator or they got a kid like, schools, we've obviously support that. We run a gala dinner every year. November 11th it is this year. Unique concept. Waiters on the night are high profile people. Danny Green.
So they come out and serve you. That's
serve
a great
food.
idea.
They used to so they serve you. They
hard yarns.
we used to Brad Hogg. We used to run. He used to pour wine, and so we lost the sort of responsible service of alcohol. So now it's literally like food. But we've had some massive Taj Burrows, Peter Ball. A good crew. But it's again for us, it's that normalising conversation. Luke Shuey spoke last year, legend. He was one of those guys that was like, man, I thought mental health was just not a thing that you sort of do, but now being in it, going through not his own, but seeing other people go through it and understanding that.
Well, he lost his sister.
Massive. But I think that's the thing. I think is that some of those people, he goes through a situation like that, and everyone would be like, if you did go through depression, you would never go, understandable. Yeah. And so, but he didn't. So that was his initial, was like, no, it's not it. It's how you define it and what that looks like. But then as he got more and more and more so from a kid's, I think when you become a parent, right, like that shifts a lot of things. And
yet that I know of.
That you know of, mate. You're talking to me. Congratulations for being in Carra for that. There's not much to do up there. So,
sick. I've foolishly said that the next ultra that I run is going to be donated to A Stitch in Time, which means now I have to run another ultra.
There you go.
Every time he does it, he goes, I'm never going to do it again.
Yeah, that's part of it, right? That's massive. Yeah. So when is it?
We did it the same day as the gala last year.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
Maybe we'll do the same thing. Finish at the gala.
Mate, perfect. And then get sourced. There you go. We'll bring you in.
That's actually a good idea. Maybe we can coordinate that and finish at the gala.
I've got a wedding on November 11th. I know.
You're a celebrant, right?
Yeah.
So. When's the wedding?
Nighttime wedding. November 11th. It's down south.
You can drive back.
Yeah.
Delby knows his dates very well as well.
Yeah, well, I know this.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because knowing of the worst celebrant in the world, Damien Martin.
Yeah. He's still in the competition.
Mate, he's the most unorganised human being in the world.
That's what I've heard.
Hit up DanielDelbyCelebrant.com.
I've heard.
If the notice of intended marriages, there is not one done before after prior 30-minute days. It is every single one.
Yeah, you need to be. Well, I know specifically because this particular wedding is for a guy who I have one of my best jokes about, the Dave joke.
Oh, yeah.
It's his wedding.
It's his wedding. Okay, cool. Okay.
So
it's a joke about him.
Yeah. His name's not Dave. That's a fake name.
But you've based it on there. Now I'm going to figure out who you've done.
Can I talk celebrant for the last...
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Are you keeping it professional or comedic?
Both.
Yeah.
So my weddings are like nothing you've seen. Yeah. So I write the script based off what they've told me, but I throw in fuckloads of stand-up. But I'm also good at being sentimental, so I write in nice shit.
Yeah.
But sometimes being funny makes it nice as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But everything I do, the couple will approve. So I'll read it to them first, so there's no spanners in the works. But I've got jokes. Like my favourite one is on my Insta, this couple, they're wicked, Steph and Tim. I go, how did you know she was the one? So he told me. So I just wrote what he said. I go, Tim knew Steph was the one when he ran from Claremont to the city at 3 a.m. He wasn't wearing a belt, but he was definitely buckled. It was an MD amazing experience.
Classic.
They loved it and it blew up. So like little things like that.
Yeah. But you need to, because I got my celebrity license.
Oh, nice.
And well, just like, because Damo was a cheap ass and then asked me to do his wedding, but it's the worst thing I've ever like.
Really?
I just, like, I love it, but I'd rather, like, I want to be, like, you want to be, just relax.
Yeah,
like,
I love it.
Yeah,
man.
no, but I did Damo's wedding, because Damo couldn't do it, I reckon, and so I was like a last minute call in, and my parents, like my mum remarried, and then so it was like a cool thing, and then I like let it lapse, and I was like never doing them ever again.
Yeah, right.
Because you work, and that's the thing. Like, you don't want to be putting in dick jokes, and then like they look back at the video and like, well, it's like vows
when they're good dick jokes.
No. I always, that's the thing. I remember like saying to the groom, like the vows, and they go, I will massage your feet every night, and you're like, no, you're not, and it's a vow. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I tell them, I'll make the vows funny. I go, you can always promise what you're not going to do.
Yeah.
So I go, I promise that I'm, not going to say I'll be home on a Friday when I'm not,
All right. Well, John Elliott will be here in a second for our next episode.
That we're going to do went around with the camels.
That's
yes,
right. Yeah,
that's it.
Hey, I thought you already had him.
Yeah, he's coming back to talk.
Is he still walking around with camels?
No, we've got some other stuff, and he's just lost an eye. So I don't know if he's waiting outside or whatever. But
He's lost the what?
He's lost some vision in one of his eyes. Bull whipped.
Bull whipped. We'll talk about that with him after this.
Yeah,
crazy.
Nuts,
but thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for your time.
Nah, my
Appreciate it.
Appreciate
Sorry,
it.
my plane was delayed.
No, don't worry.
I'm just grateful that we have air travel.
Little things, mate. All good.
Sick.
Ciao.